We're jumping to the next question.
I'm sure if you talk faster and say more, everyone will think you won.
I'm sure that if you're just bitchy and rude, everyone will think you're funny.
Lol. We're off to a good start. The hell happened? Okay. Praying for me? Why? Why are you praying for me? What the heck, Bogus?
James. We're going to go to James.
All right, so my question's for Kyla. So if greater, it's based off something you said in your opening, if greater reproductive autonomy predictably results in
What is that noise? A little loud, isn't it?
more murdered babies, what's the benefit of that autonomy that is justified?
Well, I know Speakeasy does believe this. I think the correct way to answer this question would be that you just don't think it's murdering babies. That's it. That's just what you do. You just engage with the premise, right?
Justifying the outcome.
I don't think anywhere in my opening I talk about reproductive autonomy.
Okay.
Contraception, changed family planning.
Oh, really dumb. For real.
It's her.
No, you said that
You
it's
said
better if women have
predictability.
control over their
You said these things were
reproduction, they can-
predictabilities when you were
Do you
talking
think
about.
reproductive autonomy just means abortion?
It results. Are you going to answer my question, or are you asking me questions?
I'm following up because
so
you're talking about
Do you
reproductive
want to answer
autonomy.
the question or no?
Do you want to know anything that you're talking about? What? What's reproductive
This
autonomy?
is that likability problem Andrew
All
was
right,
talking
we're-
about.
Yeah, there's one thing.
We're going to, all right, let's rein it
What,
in.
in a room full of Rachel
All right.
fans, they like
Can
you
you-
more? That's crazy.
Can
You know, it
can you
helps your
just
arguments if you're
hold
not
on.
insufferable.
All right, sorry
I
to
would,
do this.
it's
I do have to-
actually
I do
you being
have to-
insufferable is
all
good
right,
for your
I do-
arguments, actually.
Just to get
That's
through,
funny.
just to
No,
get through
everybody
people's
likes
questions.
me.
Just
I mean, Logos, you know my answer to that. I wouldn't take him seriously. I just not a serious person, right?
Not
Just-
true.
I'm very popular.
to get
and
through people's
well-liked.
questions, can you restate your question in a summer
It's not
rephrase?
a serious argument, right?
Do you want to just talk about abortion? Sounds like you want to talk about abortion.
Okay. Do you want to?
Contraception, if she did say that in her opening, contraception would qualify here.
Answer
Sir,
my
keyboard
question,
warrior
or do you want to
answer.
ask me questions again?
Okay.
If
go ahead.
greater reproductive autonomy results in more murdered babies, what's the benefit of that autonomy that justifies that outcome?
I have to hear that one more time.
Answer
Sure.
my
Keyboard
question,
warrior
or do you want to
answer.
ask me questions again?
Okay.
If
go ahead.
greater reproductive autonomy results in more murdered babies, what's the benefit of that autonomy that justifies that outcome?
I don't think it's murder. That's what you'd have to say. Because that's being smuggled in there. That's the primary fulcrum crux of that entire argument that I think is being kind of assumed to be true in there, but it's not murder. That's what I would say.
The benefit of more reproductive autonomy for women is that they're able to better control family planning, which allows them to do things.
Everyone, every single time, bro. Her answer here is awful. Burnham's exceeding expectations. What is that? What is Burnham's exceeding expectations? It's a joke I don't get. What she does wrong here, she doesn't engage with what I just British PM. How long has he been PM for? Like a fucking day? A week? I'm like, wait a minute. What has he done? Burnham, okay. Policy. Her mistake here, right? What is her mistake? Well, I'm not really sure. I don't know enough about UK politics to like make that claim, Bogos. I know there's a lot of like issues with the Nigel Farage party, whatever the fuck it's called, the Reform Party, and blah blah. But I honestly don't know enough. Kyla here, right? Or Kayla, or Nonso Erudite. Okay. What is devolution? What is devolution? So decentralize? Okay, so like decentralizing, federalism. Okay. That's usually pretty smart, sometimes. Local governments can be, honestly, local governments are probably the most corrupt out of any governmental system, if you want to be honest. Just their oversight is just notably lacking comparatively to like a federal system, or a centralized one. At least in countries like the US and similarly positioned countries, but I'm assuming this probably means like state, regional, right? Not like local city governments, but I don't know. That sounds fine to me. I mean, it's just harder to do. You just witnessed a crime. What did you witness? Sounds like it was more than just a crime. It's just really hard to do on a locality scale, like city-wise. It'd have to be set up by, you know, the city body, which is notably not in their self-interest. And there's many different ways to create like a locality. You can do like a city council, which is common, but also has its drawbacks, right? Like they're not really going to be interested in setting up something that... You want me to watch that? I wanted to watch that actually. I'll watch that on stream until someone wants to debate. And then there's like city... What is it called again? Commencements or something like that, which are even less. You know, you can't really do any oversight over those ones. They have more control, even still. I can't believe I can't remember the fucking name, but I'm assuming this means like regional, state, province. But before I switch, Speakeasy here asked her a question that, again, I think it smuggles in the real question that needs to be addressed. The use of the word murder is wrong. That needs to be addressed. You cannot move forward in this conversation until you address the word murder. Right?
So rephrase it.
Do you want to just talk about abortion? Sounds like you want to talk about abortion.
If
go ahead.
greater reproductive autonomy results in more murdered babies,
There's your question right there. More murdered babies. Again, I would just reject this and say that it's not murder. We need to make sure that we are aware of this disagreement between us before we move forward.
what's the benefit of that autonomy that justifies
Like, I don't care about what benefit is in this conversation until we all agree on the fact that we don't agree whether it's murder or not.
that outcome?
More reproductive
So what does Kyla do?
autonomy for women is that they're able to better control family planning.
Wrong answer, right? Why? Well, the fact that she's not addressing the word murder there silently means that she's accepting it. So now, anything that she says after this sounds like this. I think better family planning is okay, even though we murder babies. Like, okay, that sounds really dumb, doesn't it? One of those outweighs the other. But Kyla doesn't think it's murder, but she never said that. So now it looks like everything that she says now, and Speakeasy's going to make her look dumb for this. Speakeasy's going to say, I don't really think, depending on planning, or like family planning, I don't really think that's the same thing or worth murdering babies, isn't it? Every single thing she says.
Which allows them to do things like investing in a career and investing in better marriage
Is career better than murdering babies?
status, which is why college women, by the way, have the happiest education.
Is being happy better than murdering babies?
So reproductive autonomy allows them to decide when they go to college because they
Is deciding when you want to go to college better than murdering babies?
can offset having children, which is good. It also results in things like abortion, which I agree it would be great to get those numbers down, but that's why it's valuable, because it does more than just one thing.
But it doesn't murder babies, does it?
Again, that what you just said is okay.
Oh, get out of here.
as
You're
a
not even keeping
benefit-
up. Get out.
We're gonna go to the next question. Okay.
This is Kyla. She's a little rude right now.
All right.
Your mom's super proud of you, though. Proud of her. Well, probably not, actually.
What do you mean the answer is yes? Lethe, the answer is not yes. The answer is I don't think it's murder. Therefore, the question you're presenting right now doesn't have the same weight. That's not what it is. It's not murder. Therefore, now it doesn't sound as extreme to go to the other stuff.
This is a PR disaster.
All right, we're
for
gonna
you.
go to the next question.
You are not
All
going
right,
to recover.
We're gonna go to the
It's
next
not,
question.
I can assure you.
Who would invite
Here we
you
go.
to an event
Well, we-
after the way you've behaved?
All right, we're gonna go
Like,
with Jonathan's
Jubilee,
question.
Jubilee.
We do have to go to the question. Jonathan has
Like
a question.
if you were my
All
daughter,
right,
I'd be
I hate
hauling
to
you out of
interrupt
here
you
by
guys.
your ear.
I think her name's not so erudite. She wasn't interested in talking. Okay, well, saying yes in that moment, Lethe, would not be a good idea, right? We can all agree on that. Okay, Dinesh versus Andrew, yeah.
Jews
Agree.
have magic Jew blood, yes or no?
Have what?
Magic Jew blood, so they're preferred by God?
How much should Taiwan pay us for preventing an invasion by China?
They should pay for whatever the naval cost.
Ooh. Lately, she's been making it difficult. I think that answer there was not good. I don't know. She did try to answer it too, and again, it just kind of misses the point. Like, you cannot move past, and I see this every time someone's in an abortion conversation, they just don't address the use of the word murder, and they just, yeah, but like, what if the child's life is difficult, and the other person just goes, yeah, I don't think that's worse than murdering babies, though. And it's just, God damn it, bro. Every time.
Doing that.
Right. This is why you're not president, because do you agree that
Also, Taiwan, not helping Taiwan would probably cost us a lot more money than whatever we could reasonably just already give to them in the form of training and military equipment in terms of product.
The people who live in Israel are Jews.
Yes, mystery
Okay.
solved.
Okay. And
There's not just Jews who live in Israel. There's Arabs. There is Palestinians.
all right.
It's not like a full-on ethno-state that exterminates people who aren't Jewish. I'm just going to make sure people know that.
I'm saying that the secularism in Israel is a result of a rebellion.
You do have to fight the definition of murder every time. Or at least, before you move on, right, Let's Chief, you have to address it, right? You can't just not address it and then move forward to the other stuff, because it sounds like you silently are accepting it, right, if you don't. So she should have been like, your use of the word murder, I don't think it's murder. Here's why. If you disagree, that's fine, but like that we got to make sure that we both agree on the fact that we disagree.
Against Judaism, not a manifestation of it.
It's the stupidest thing that I ever heard.
Israel was
Can it be a secular Jewish state, Dinesh?
Israel.
It is secular. Israel? What is he talking about? It is secular. Although that might not be true in the next 20 years. I guess we'll see. If people like Ben Gvir stay in office for long enough.
Can it be a secular Jewish state, Dinesh?
Israel.
Can it be a secular Jewish
Yes,
state?
it is.
Thank you.
Okay, but I'll refute it.
I can't
The United States is a secular Christian country.
wait.
Okay.
I know, but Lethe, in a debate like that, again, if you don't address it, everything you say afterwards is going to be under the same scope or the same understanding that you accepted it. You know what I mean? So they can still call it murder. That's fine. You just have to make sure that you address that, or else, when Speakeasy says, greater reproductive, whatever, leads to more babies being murdered. If you don't address that babies being murdered part, it seems like you're accepting their premise, their assumption. And then everything you try and say afterwards is going to be a losing battle. It still doesn't mean that you convince them they don't think it's murder. It's just to protect yourself.
With that, we're gonna
Charlie Kirk would fuck people every day on this dude. Every day he would make people look retarded, okay? Because this very thing that I'm talking about. Yeah, I know. But like, see if I can find one.
One just happens to be older. One just happens to be outside of the womb. They're both human beings. And you have something in you that says, no way is it okay to kill a 2-year-old. That's called your soul talking. What I'm trying to do is connect reason and your soul and have that same sort of objection no when you see twins on an ultrasound.
I just believe you're looking at this more emotionally than scientifically.
Like, what a horrible argument.
That, again, you can believe that. I actually am looking at it incredibly reasonably, because I can tell you down to the minute when human life begins. You kind of
No, you can't.
give me a range.
Human life began before conception. Life must make life. Non-life cannot make life. Just making sure people realize that.
Your life began not at birth, but at conception, about 9 months before
That's
your
your
birth.
opinion.
Well, it's actually science's opinion. You know why? This is your eye color, your skin color, your tastes, your wants, your desires, your interests, introverted or extroverted, whether or not you're going to be tall or short, it all
Both of those existed within the cells of the egg and your sperm. Were the sperm? Were those non-life? I think not. But Charlie would fuck people every day on this. He would just be like, it's murder. And they're like, yeah, but what about taking care of the kid? And he'd be like, it's murder. And it's so annoying.
jump into the main event for the entire conference. Are Christians morally obligated to support the Jews in Israel? I am excited for this one. Introducing first, Dinesh D'Souza is a best-selling author, award-winning filmmaker, and veteran conservative intellectual who has shaped American political debate for decades. Please join me in welcoming Dinesh D'Souza. And on our right, a man who needs no introduction, Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible, is one of online debate's most experienced and formidable figures, known for his aggressive cross-examination and quick improvisation. Andrew Wilson. So,
It's Dinesh D'Souza, man. He's retarded. How is that possible? Are you serious? I mean, I don't think he's representative of anything good. You know what I mean? This dude is quite literally a Christian. So.
And then, just so it's no surprise, what we're going to do is right after their opening statements, which will be at the podium for 5 minutes each, we are going to move the podium and then bring the tables closer together so that the speakers are closer together for that open dialogue session. With that, we're going to start the debate. Dinesh will be going first. I have the timer set for you, Dinesh, and I will start it on your first word. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Well, I feel like I'm going to be in the lion's den today. And there might be a few of you who support Israel, some of you on the fence.
Who the fuck cares? Why would you ever say this? I go into places all the time where my opinions are most definitely not welcome, and it doesn't bother me because I make my opinions for myself. So maybe crowd control type, but to me, weak. Don't do that.
And most of you are probably going to be a little hostile.
Okay, it's the second comment now. Move on.
And so my presence here should be taken as well, I'll try to make it as painless as possible, but it's going to be a little bit of an intellectual suppository for you. I want to clarify some terms in the debate to make it clear what we're going to be debating about. And then I want to try to focus the argument in its most kind of primitive or fundamental way so we don't get drawn into sort of side issues. We're talking as Christians, so I'm assuming that the premise of the debate is that we are Christians.
Does anyone know if Andrew Wilson's an Eastern Orthodox Christian, right? Is that correct? I can't remember if he is.
We're Catholics, we're Protestants, we're in the mainstream of the Christian tradition. My own work in apologetics has taken the C.S. Lewis kind of mere Christianity approach. I'll be using generally that in this debate. By way of background, I come from a very old Catholic family in India. It goes back about 400 years. My grandfather's brother was the Cardinal of Pakistan. So I'm deeply rooted in the Catholic tradition, the Catholic intellectual tradition. I've studied it, I've written a lot about it, and I've debated it against generally leading atheists, people like Christopher Hitchens and others.
Okay, dude, you did not actually really debate him. You got fucking walloped. Shut up, bro.
Now, Israel is not my topic. And by that I mean in a career spanning 35 years, I haven't written about it. I barely mentioned it. I'm not known as a Zionist. I don't identify with Zionism, which was a secular socialist movement of the 19th.
No, it was not. Zionism is not a secular movement, bro. What the fuck? There's your first mistake. not understanding what Zionism is. What in the fuck is he talking about?
Century. I have no particular stake in Israel as a country. I'm America first all the way. And so keep those things in mind as we have this debate. If you're looking for me to sort of...
What about, isn't the debate prompt, do Christians have a stake in Israel? He's arguing they do, right? I'm pretty sure Andrew's now arguing they do. So doesn't that mean he has a stake in Israel? Isn't that the whole point of this debate?
Channel Ben Shapiro or Mark Levin. That's really not going to be happening here. I'm not a professional Israel advocate in any sense of the term. I discovered Israel really 2 or 3 years ago when I visited for the first time. And I found it interesting in 2 ways. The first one was simply that we live at a time when cities have become really homogenized. These days, you know, there's no point going to Zurich and Copenhagen. It's all kind of one thing. Israel's not like that. In Israel, you're very conscious that you're in the land of the Bible. That is a very important feeling for Christians. You get the sense that this is your spiritual homeland. And by spiritual homeland, what I mean is that our faith is not some kind of abstraction that is delivered in the sky. It could have been. God could have put the 10 Commandments, he could have put it on the moon. But he didn't do that. Our Bible, our history, our Christianity is historical. It's rooted in real people and real...
Okay, I'm not really sure where he's going with this. I'm confused. Is he going to argue the prompt or not? What is happening?
Real events and real places. It took place somewhere in the world, and that somewhere happens to be Israel. That's worth remembering and worth noting. I also discovered in the course of now 4 visits to Israel, the thing that really interests me, and that is biblical archaeology. And biblical archaeology has the definitive effect of authenticating and corroborating the people and events in the Bible. We can go into it a little bit later. I will give you the most shocking examples of this, but it is a massive refutation of the skepticism and atheism of the 19th century, which basically said that the Bible was written hundreds of years later and most of it was kind of made up. Biblical archaeology shows us that the Bible is talking about real people and true events. You can debate the miracles, you can debate the theology, but that these things are real, these people are real, the events are real, has been authenticated down to the most excruciating detail. That's very important because it also happens to establish the presence of the Jews in their ancestral homeland. And in a way, to me, the fundamental question that we're discussing today, when I say morally obligated, what I really mean is, what's the right thing to do? Now, saying what the right thing to do doesn't solve the problem of should we give money to Israel or how much money should we give to Israel. No, supporting Israel here basically means having a certain recognition of a kind of spiritual and historical kinship or line of continuity.
This debate prompt is dumb, okay? I'm trying to think of a way to say this, but the idea of biblical Israel versus the modern state of Israel is quite literally a big question here. They're not the same. And there's things like universal obligations within the Christian faith, especially Orthodox Christian faith. And, you know, I think I would draw on people like Irenaeus, Sullivan, Gork. Give me a second, see if I can remember a few more. McGuckin, the Orthodox Church, right? Who wrote that book? And then you have the Encyclopedia of Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and there's like moral obligations that are universal. Okay, so the Christian moral obligations would most likely be towards like people first, persons, and they would not be toward like an unconditional allegiance to like modern day Israel. That's just fucking ridiculous. So I don't really know what he's trying to argue right now. To me, this prompt seems very easy. He's gonna have to be a lot more clear, or else Andrew's gonna fucking destroy him.
Established, by the way, in the Bible. And don't think of the Old Testament as Jewish. The New Testament is just as Jewish as the Old. Both are describing Jewish communities, and Christianity came right out of that. In fact, the first Christians were Jews. They were Jews who followed the Messiah. I think historically we could say with
weren't there like two Zionist how do I say it? Like main starting moments, right? The first one, and then there's like that one ultra nationalist fucking dude, right? In like the early 1900s, even though I know it started in the late 1800s or like latter half of the 1800s. I think from the 20th century and on, it was most definitely was not exactly a secular movement, right? Or am I wrong in that?
great accuracy, they were the very first Judeo-Christians. The apostles were Judeo-Christians. Now...
The apostles were Judeo-Christians. Many of them were Jews, yeah. I think they probably wouldn't have called themselves Jews by, the time of their writing the Synoptic Gospels and other works, right? Paul famously again called himself the Hebrew of Hebrews, right? Like he was a Pharisee. His family was very well known, very astute, kind of like part of the aristocratic nature of the Pharisee group, which is not really that common because Pharisees were not the dominant social group for Jews at the time. But nonetheless, Paul was a Pharisee. I don't think he would have called himself that, though, at the time of writing about Jesus or the works of Jesus, right? I don't really know. I guess I'm just going to let him talk a little bit more. I just feel like Christian moral obligation is more like, should we support the safety of Israeli citizens? I mean, obviously, yeah. And that's just because they're other people, not because they're Israeli. I don't think the political judgment of like recognizing Israel as a state is necessary at all for Christianity right now, because biblical Israel is different than modern Israel. Israel's creation being like the fulfillment of a prophecy is most definitely not something that makes sense within Eastern Orthodox literature. That would be heavily disputed. Most of the other stuff that we're probably going to talk about today are just going to be like loose, contingent political judgments that don't really mean anything and have no founding of moral obligation.
To me, the core of this question is, whose land is it?
30 seconds.
30 seconds? I was just getting warned. This is my introduction, guys.
25 seconds.
All right. Let me just put it this way. There are 3 ways to get a country. First, you were there first. That's the ancestral claim. Number 2, you got the country by some kind of negotiation or treaty. Or number 3, you got the land because you captured it. Every single country on the map in the world now has gotten its claim based on one of these 3 ways. The argument I'm going to make is that Israel succeeds on all 3 ways. It checks all the boxes. Even America doesn't. The American Indians were here first. We might have conquered them, taken the land from them, so we got it by conquest. They got it by original inhabitancy. And there's a little bit of an argument over here, but I'm going to argue that the Jews were there, it's their land. Number 2, they got it by treaty. It was given to them by the United Nations. They accepted it. The Palestinians rejected it. And 3, they got it by not just by conquest, They fought 3 defensive wars against massive coalitions of Islamic forces that are into essentially global colonization. The Muslims are the real colonizers. And so whichever box you choose, Israel succeeds. And therefore, supporting Israel isn't just sort of the biblical thing to do, it's the right thing to do. Thank you very much.
Again, this doesn't make any sense. This is just a political judgment that is disguised as somehow like a real prophetical equivocation of like biblical Israel and modern day Israel. It is false and it is a ruse. Meaningless.
And I've got the timer ready for you, Andrew, on your first word. Oh, that's right. If you're able to.
Got to set the mood.
First of all, big round of applause for Dinesh real quick. Great.
They were there first. I mean, technically, Arabs and Jews are of the same ethnic geographical marker. So the land of Judea back in biblical Israel time was more or less just a bunch of different early communities. Islam obviously didn't exist back then. Early Judaism dominated most of the area. And even then, early Judaism was extremely different from each other because there was no canonical Torah, Tanakh yet in early Judaism. It was just oral Mishnah, okay? And this is one of the reasons that, like, the rabbinic Judaism is so broad and large and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they all come from the same place. That's why they speak the same Semitic brute languages. Now, to say who came first, I'm not really interested in that. It's just kind of it's the same game that, like, someone who wants to criticize the United States for, like, you know, whether we should give land back to the Native Americans. It's like, it's not going to help anyone. You know, it's like, we didn't come here first. Are we just going to give the land back up because of that fact? That's not how this works. And if you go back far enough, you're just going to continue being, you know, injured in some way, depending on what group you are. They did defend it. I mean, there's a lot of history of Arab aggression, especially from Egypt, right? As well as Israeli aggression. I mean, Israel, there's this thing that Israel did where they had these, like, watchtowers, and Arabs would come back. They thought they were coming back to their own land. They didn't know that Israel was a thing, okay? Because this wasn't like, you know, today where everyone knows, you know, where the borders are and everything. Israel would shoot on sight these infiltrators, they called them, and then they had a practice of like exerting extreme reciprocal action based on people being upset about it. I think they called it like something parties. I can't remember, but you know, Israel was fairly, in some cases, ridiculous when it came to instances like that where a farmer would come back to what they thought was their own land, their home, and Israel would just shoot them on sight. And then there's like real threats like Egypt throughout the entire historical creation of Israel and its relationship to Egypt, which was extremely like aggressive. Egypt was publicly saying every day that they would want the extermination of Israel. So, I mean, there's a lot of things of the entire conflict that go back to, you know, earlier than 1948. But nonetheless, I don't really see why this is a Christian moral obligation.
Great opening.
I thought that opening sucked ass.
But that's not going to save him. I want for everybody to remember that the topic of this debate is if Christians have a moral obligation to support Jews in Israel. He didn't give us one. It is obvious to me that since the answer is clearly no, that Dinesh likely gave no reason, which means I predicted he wouldn't give us one. I will begin.
I hate his openings, though, guys. They're insufferable to me. He does this every time. Andrew, please stop doing this. The whole I predicted thing is just so lame to me.
And by expressing to you, the audience, that when discussing normative claims, or in this case, moral claims, you need to demonstrate why the moral obligation is there. Dinesh's view comes down to a whole bunch of really stupid propositions that actually make no sense.
That's a moral obligation to people, not a moral obligation to the very existence of Israel as some Christian, biblically tied destiny, right?
Note, I'm not calling Dinesh stupid. He's far from it. But even intelligent people can believe stupid propositions and often do. Logical proposition 1, Christians need to support a Jewish state of Israel because their ethics and Christian ethics overlap. This is something which Dinesh has said multiple times. The reason this is a stupid proposition is because the modern state of Israel is a secular state. This state supports abortion, and most of the public supports it. They have pregnancy termination boards, which grant 99% of applications abortions up to 20.
This is not biblical. I thought he would go like an Eastern Orthodox route, but you probably have to read Orthodox literature, I think, first. The Bible, especially in the New Testament, makes no mention of abortions, man. So what the fuck does bringing up abortions have to do with anything? If anything, the Old Testament and the Tanakh don't even bring up abortions in the way that he's talking about. But you would be borrowing Jewish literature then. I don't get this argument so far. It's dumb.
24 weeks and beyond. They support gay marriage, and while not marrying gays themselves, as there is no civil marriage authority, they recognize all out-of-country gay marriages as valid, and all gay cohabitation has identical social and financial rights. Let that sink.
Literally not even mentioned in any Orthodox literature as well. I don't know why the fuck this matters. I have zero clue why the fuck he's talking about this stuff. There's plenty of Orthodox literature that he could talk about right now that would be much better. You have Douglas J. Moo, you have Kendall Solon, you have Amy Jill Levine, you have, again, the Gork Orthodox Jewish dialogue pages. I mean, there's so many things I think you could talk about, and I don't know why I expected him to do that.
In. They are extremely pro-transgender, and their public health care system provides generously for trans surgery and voice mod training. Sorry about that. 1 second here.
Is he literally going to start with just culture war shit the entire time? My brain.
According to their own polling, the Israeli Institute for Gender and LGBTQ Studies has supported 75% or more for homosexual acceptance, advocacy, and gender care, which includes 90% from secular Jews and even over 50% from the religious Orthodox Jews. Now, I can keep going. Women in the military, IVF programs, national health care, prostitution, pornography. These are libtards, essentially, who live in Israel that Dinesh wants us to support.
Okay. So if I was debating Andrew, guys, you know what I would say? I would say, okay, so hypothetically, Andrew, let's say everything you just said was not true. And instead, there was a group in Israel that had power that were not libtards and ultimately wanted an extremely orthodox anti-culture war thing that you just mentioned. Would that suddenly make it true that you need to, like Christians are morally obligated to support the Jews in Israel? If he says no, then everything he said so far is quite literally worthless, and it means nothing. If he says yes, okay, well, he'd be very happy to know that Netanyahu's government and the Zionist party actually do not support a single thing he just talked about. They're the ones in power, too. I'm confused. I'm very confused right now.
A whole nation of them. Christian ethics here in the USA determines that we resist these things in our own nations. Why would we support other nations which codify these things as law any more than we would Sharia law? I don't want millions upon millions or billions of my dollars to be used to support a system which allows for these forms of degeneracy when we are busy combating them in our own backyard. Why would Christians support that? Now, Dinesh can argue the USA is plagued with similar problems, and that's true. And Christians here oppose our own governmental national apparatus and strongly attempt to legislate against these forms of policy. We do the opposite of funding it, except through force of tax. Proposition 2, Dinesh believes that the Christians have a stake in Israel because it's the holiest of holies, and the holiest Christian sites are there. I grant this is true, but that doesn't give us much reason to keep the population there Jewish. If Christians in the West truly want access to the holy sites, then why not just demand Israel, who is our protectorate, take a certain amount of Christians per year? I think 100,000 or more should do the trick. The USA...
Does that mean Christians then have a moral obligation to support Israel? If they just took in a certain amount of Christians per year? Is he serious?
Has no cap on Jews immigrating here. Why not just demand they allow Christian immigration with no cap there, or we cut off all military funding and support, and that's that.
Does that mean you now have a moral obligation to support them simply if they just let Christians in?
Then we get the holy sites. He argues that Israelis guard these things better than Muslims. I can see that's true, but I'm certain millions of Christian immigrants could protect them just fine. Not sure.
I don't know how this would even answer the question of whether Christians should morally and have an obligation to support Israel.
Why there needs to be a Jewish state to do this, or why we have a moral obligation to keep it Jewish at all. Proposition 3, Dinesh often cites the biblical principle of those who bless Israel will be blessed. That's Genesis 12:3. Does a modern state of Israel seem very blessed to you? If you took every Jew in Israel and put them in Germany in the year 2026, they would be safer than they are in Israel. How's that for irony?
Safer in what way? They would be safer against their own government, or safer because hostility around them? I'm not sure what this point's supposed to mean.
Is God blessing their abortions, their homosexuality, and prostitution advocacy, the rejection of the Messiah? Doesn't seem like it to me. If that's what a God-blessed nation looks like, then I would be very wary of the blessings of that God, because he sure seems like he isn't very fond of them at the moment.
I don't think this means anything either.
Proposition 4. Do Christians have an obligation to support religious Jews naming a Messiah, considering that that Messiah figure will certainly be false and antichrist? This is obviously no. Don't know about Dinesh over here, but the proposition of naming a false Messiah and Christians supporting that by funding the religious, more conservative section of Jewish population claiming it's moral seems insane to me. Proposition 5. Are secular Jews blessed, or non-religious Jews blessed by the same Genesis passage? In other words, if I bless atheist Jews and all their liberal policies, will I in turn be blessed with magic Jew?
What is an atheist Jew? What is an atheist Jew?
In other words, if I bless atheist Jews and...
What the fuck does that mean? Are we talking about religious Jews, or are we talking about ethnic Jews? Why? What is... I don't understand this. What the fuck is he talking about?
all their liberal policies. Well,
That doesn't mean that they're automatically liberal. It also doesn't mean that every atheist is liberal. I don't know. He's like collapsing way too many things right now.
turn be blessed with magic Jew blood.
That would be ethnic Jew. That would be ethnically Jewish. And unfortunately, it's not enough, I think, especially if we're talking from the Christian point of view.
Do I need to fight and die on their behalf for this blessing? Is it just a mind state, like I just kind of cheer them on? Does it require action on my part? What are my actual obligations here as a Christian?
I agree. Can we have anything concerning that? Not you hate gay people or something? What the fuck is going on?
What's the normative framework to receive said blessing from my support of atheist Jews?
I swear to God.
I say the opposite. As a Christian, it's my duty to resist and oppose the radical atheist and secular Jewish agenda of Israel.
Secular doesn't mean atheist? Whatsoever? The majority of secular people in the world are Christian. The U.S. has the largest population of secular people in a secular government, and they are Christian. It doesn't mean that you're atheist. Holy fuck.
Until they conform to my ethical model, I would like...
If they conform to your ethical model, does that somehow mean that you have an obligation to fucking support Israel or what? I'm so fucking confused right now. This is the dumbest thing I've ever fucking heard.
And would do, in all cases, I would demand this of every nation, pull all financial and military support and deal with them only as a limited capacity as they could be dealt with.
That is not a Christian moral obligation argument. This is a I don't like nations that don't do what I say, Wilson political judgment. That's what that was. I'm kind of like disappointed right now. I honestly thought Wilson would actually talk from Eastern Orthodoxy tradition, and I don't know what I expected. This is just disappointing.
I am not in the business of funding abortion, homosexuality, prostitution, female empowerment. Christians must resist these propositions and demand...
Even though they're not even in the Bible? Like homosexuality is mentioned 0 times. Gayness is mentioned literally 0 times. Gayness in the way that he's talking about. You know, homosexual gayness. Not like dominant, subservient homosexual behavior that's mentioned in Romans. But, you know, I guess that's the focus. Culture war shit. Culture war. Which has nothing to do with a Christian's moral obligation to that they should support Israel. I'm losing my fucking mind right now.
And if Israel wants our aid, they need to conform to the standards and normative ethics of the very Christians they endlessly demand help from.
This is meaningless again.
To clarify a few terms, when you're making a normative claim, Dinesh, when you're making a ought claim, you need to tell us why Christians ought to support this nation.
True. I think everything that Andrew's mentioned so far has not given an ought or ought not to in any way, shape, or form. Again, I think you could appeal to like the Goric Orthodoxy, or the many writings Callistos Ware, you know, real Eastern Orthodox thinkers, writers, to try and come to a conclusion here from the Orthodoxy. And instead, what I've gotten is Andrew just saying, I hate gay people and abortions. Like, this is fucking stupid as hell. Hey, technically,
so far, you have not done that.
And the funny thing again, what if there was a group in Israel that actually did agree with everything you just said? Would that mean that you now have the obligation as a Christian to support that country simply because they hate gay people and all that shit you just mentioned? Because the group that's in power does actually not agree with those things. Netanyahu is Zionist, like his Licknick or whatever the fuck it's called, and then the Zionist appropriation literally agree with everything he just said. So what happens now? They've conformed. Why should you not support them?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for those openings. So, for the open dialogue, I have
Yeah, it's Likud, or I can't fucking remember the name.
the timer set. This will be 80 minutes, and we're going to move the speakers
Likud,
just a
there we go.
little
Likud,
closer.
I don't give a fuck.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Excellent work. And then, Sean, if you can give us a thumbs up on whether or not that's where we need them. Maybe if you could bring it just a little closer, maybe with the V shape, if you can just squeeze a little bit so it's a tighter V, a more acute angle. Thank you. There you go. Let's see, Sean, is that better? So, you want them straight across?
Hurry the fuck up. What is going on?
Thanks. And of course, thank you very much.
Me to go first, just to get us going.
It's your claim.
Okay. Would you agree that the New Testament not only follows the Old, but incorporates the Old? In other words,
Okay. Depending on which synoptic gospel you read and which writer of the New Testament. Matthew was operating on Torah logic, so very favorable to Jewish prophecies and things like that. Luke couldn't give two fucks. So
put it differently, that Christianity is the only religion that takes the scriptures of another religion and incorporates it wholesale.
This is most definitely not true. This is factually not true. And do you want to know something funny? The Quran is quite literally a fucking nether religion that believes in the Abrahamic story. What the fuck are we talking about? What are we talking about?
Into its own Bible, true or false?
That's false.
That's false.
Mm-hmm.
So you would prefer to see the Old Testament removed from the Bible?
No. No, it's on I have a different worldview than you do. I see these things as a continuity.
How is no one's going, he's not going to address the fact that the Quran, he just said, here, let's listen to him again. Christianity is the only religion that incorporates words of the Old Testament or another religion into their own. The Quran and Islam are foundationally, the beginnings of the book use the Abrahamic story. They use the story of Abraham. So it also incorporates the Old Testament into the Quran. So what he just said is just factually not even true, with like the most closest adjacent religion possible.
The Old, but incorporates the Old. In other words, to put it differently, that Christianity is the only religion that takes the scriptures of another religion and
Christianity is the only religion that takes scriptures of another religion.
Incorporates it wholesale into its own Bible, true or false?
Maybe that's his demarcation line, wholesale, which isn't even true either. I'm not sure. Maybe that's maybe that right there. He would say, well, Islam doesn't do it wholesale, but no, it does. It takes the story of Abraham, has slight adjustments, but ultimately accepts the entire story of Abraham. So Genesis and everything.
That's false.
That's false.
Mm-hmm.
So you would prefer to see the Old Testament removed from the Bible?
No. No, it's on I have a different worldview than you do. I see these things as a continuity, whereas you see them as a multitude of covenants. Is that correct?
No, I didn't say that. I started out with the physical Bible. When I look at my Bible, it's about 800 pages long.
Okay.
Okay.
About 2/3 of it is the Old
Is the Old Testament, yes.
Testament, and the Old Testament is in the Christian Bible.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right? The Christians didn't say it's an historical document that we should read in conjunction with our scriptures. It is included in the Christian scripture.
The Christians did say that the Gentiles, which would later become Christians, were freed by Christ and given the opportunity of salvation through it. So it's not that Christians need to adopt everything that the Old Testament says or does or means at all. I mean, I'm not really sure what he's trying to say here.
Scriptures, I asked you true or false, and you truly said false.
This quite literally does not mean a single thing about being morally obligated to support the modern state of Israel.
Which to me is deeply heretical
Well.
because it implies that you're saying that the Old Testament does not belong in the Bible.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. So
What are you saying?
to clarify, I'm just saying that I would agree that these things are on a continuity, right? And maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, but now that we have that clarified, I think that these are on a continuity rather than covenantal.
All right, so they're in a continuity. Would you agree that the Old Testament is no less inspired than the New? In other words, it is just as sacred, it's sacred scripture, no less than the New.
Okay, here, let me sum this up as fast as I can right now, okay? This whole entire section right now is essentially this. Christianity is historically and spiritually rooted in Israel and Judaism. True or false? Answer's true. Sick. Okay, now let's move forward, okay? The debate is Christians are morally obligated to support the state of Israel. Does the conclusion there follow from the very fact that Christianity is historically and spiritually rooted in Israel and Judaism? The answer is fuck no, it doesn't, so we can move on from this because this is a waste of time. The fact that Christianity came from Jewish people does not mean that Christians should somehow support like the modern state of Israel. That's just fucking retarded.
And on the same footing as the New. You agree?
Sure.
Okay. And you agree that the foundations of
This entire part here, I feel like he's just going to keep going. It's just, this is dumb.
Christianity are anchored in the Old Testament, by which I mean that Christianity would be inconceivable without Genesis, the account of creation, the Exodus, the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, it would be totally incoherent.
The prophets. You agree?
Yeah, it'd be totally
You
incoherent.
agree that not only is that Jewish scriptures, but it is no less the Christian scriptures.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And do you agree further that when the Pilgrims and then later the American founders in America...
Andrew already knows. Andrew already knows exactly what I just said. He's literally thinking the same thing. He's straight up just going, okay, this is quite literally the longest non sequitur on planet Earth.
Saw themselves as building a civilization anchored on Athens and Jerusalem. When they spoke about Jerusalem, they were referring to Christianity, the Old Testament, and the New. True or false?
I would say that that's true.
That is true. And therefore, America itself, our own country, is based on these two foundations, including the foundation of Jerusalem. If somehow the foundation of Jerusalem, historically, morally, ethically, were to be kicked out, we would be essentially cutting off our own feet. True or false?
Well, just can I ask a clarifying question? So when you say if Jerusalem is kicked out from under our feet, what are you referencing?
I'm referring to the continuous tradition, as you described it, that begins with not just Genesis and Noah and Adam, but then continues with Abraham.
Yeah, you
and
need to have the Old
David.
Testament for there to be a continuity, yes.
Right, and so Jerusalem refers to the whole biblical narrative that begins about 2000 BC with Abraham and continues to the Acts of the Apostles, which is about 60 or 70 AD.
No. No. What the fuck is he talking about? Paul is maybe 60, 50. The rest of the Synoptic Gospels, one of them might be 70 to 90 AD. And then other than that, man, you are fucking way off. What do you...
That whole story is Jerusalem.
No, it's
Okay.
not.
And I'm saying that that is a core foundation of our civilization. And
I guess the escape from Egypt and, conquering the lands of Canaan, or better yet, not doing it, and then being banished to the fucking desert for 40 years in Numbers is all Jerusalem.
So what?
well, what it means is that that as a country, we recognize that we have moral, philosophical, and historical continuities with certain countries. And I would
No. We have moral obligations. A Christian must accept something like this. Do we have the moral obligation to protect people, or just, the Jewish people from destruction arbitrarily or something like that? That would be true. A Christian would say that about almost anyone. That's part of the moral code. As far as like certain countries, I don't know where he's referring to. There's no literature I can think of that would say this.
mention two. Great
So
Britain.
overlapping ethics.
Great Britain, because
Andrew just
a
said
lot
that
of
right.
the ideas, not only were a lot of the founders coming from Great Britain, but we have had a special relationship with Great Britain that's now extended for many, many years, and it's based on the idea that we've got something in common with these.
We don't have any moral obligation to somehow just defend Great Britain until death. Do we? What if they started committing a genocide? Like, turn into the Nazis? Do we have a moral obligation to them still? The answer is no.
These people, even more so than with, say, the Germans or the Norwegians. And therefore, if there's an international crisis, the United States will team up right away with
Not if they're the ones doing the crisis.
Great Britain as its European sort of, what do you call it, protectorate, and then try to get Great Britain to win over the
Is he just casting spells right now, dude?
other European countries. In other words, this special relationship.
So what?
Okay.
Wait, where do we get to the moral obligation here, Dinesh?
Thank you.
Great. We've established, hey, we have a the most special relationship ever with
Okay.
England because our ancestors come from England and France.
Right, and we
I'll happen to note very quickly, the top white demographic inside the United States is German, not English. Just want to point that out.
Fair enough.
Very, very far removed from what it was initially at our foundation. Where do we ever get to the moral obligation?
Okay, so first of all, let me address your German point, because there is a key difference between immigrants and settlers. The British built the country. The Germans came to a good country that the British built. So a settler is the guy who makes the country, makes the system.
Is he really doing the PragerU immigrant versus settler argument right now? The Charlie Kirk? No, they're not immigrants. They're settlers. Obviously. You fucking kidding me right now? This is real? Like,
The immigrant is the guy who moves because he believes.
oh my fucking Lord. Because what? He's fleeing persecution or something? Like the Puritans did? Technically, settlers are immigrants to the native people. They just didn't have the ability to fight the stomach flu that whatever we brought over. Or they lacked the cohesive ability to defend against themselves, which probably was a good thing in a way, because places of high density population, like where the Spaniards conquered, they just became slaves because there was a difference in technological capability. And the death by bug thing.
Believes it's a really good club that he wants to join. So it doesn't matter how many immigrants have come later, the building of America was done by the settlers. Now here's my point. With countries as with people, we have a certain, if you're a conservative, you have a certain respect for your own patrimony. It's yours. It's your lineage.
Blood and
it's
soil?
kind of like saying,
Wait, are you making a blood and soil? I thought you rejected blood
I'm
and
not
soil.
making. It doesn't matter how many immigrants have come later, the building of America was done by the settlers. Now here's my point. With countries has respect for your own patrimony. It's yours. It's your lineage.
Blood and soil.
It's kind of like saying,
Wait, are you making a blood and soil? I thought you rejected blood and soil.
I'm making an historical, immoral, and
Wait,
an
didn't you write a
intellectual
book
argument.
where you rejected the entirety of blood and soil? And that's the argument you're making here. Blood and soil.
I'm simply
Do
saying.
we have a super special relationship with other white people because they're white, Dinesh?
No, because those white people in other parts of the world had nothing to do with America.
Then
but
what the hell
British-
are you talking about, dude?
I'm talking about the fact that the British did. I'm talking about that the fact that the Bible is situated in that country and no other. It's not as
So what?
So, as Christians, this is something that should be important to us. It's evidently
I'm
not important
okay,
to you.
look, let's break a couple things down. Absolutely, it's important.
Okay.
Great. Can we get to the moral lot part?
Okay. All right. So now let's turn.
Okay. Let's see where this is going to go. I think anyone who knows Paul's writing, okay? I think Dinesh is going to invoke something like Romans 11 right now, okay? Something like, because Romans 11's the title is Israel's rejection is not final. We'll see what happens.
To the people who live in Israel. Do you agree that the people who live in Israel are Jews?
Yes. Mystery
Okay.
solved.
Okay. And all right. And do you also agree that they are directly in the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? In other words, they come in a sort of historical, religious, and ancestral line from the old Jews. In other words, what I'm saying is,
You mean that particular tribe, coming off the 12 tribes, that can be traced back?
I'm simply saying that there's a line of continuity in the same way that there's a line of continuity.
I agree. Do you agree
Okay.
that that's the case with Palestinians as well? They come
No.
from the same?
No.
No.
Let's take, for example,
Even though
Gaza.
ancestral DNA points this out?
No, it doesn't.
It
let's
does.
let's look at Gaza, for example, which is the heart of our debate. Gaza.
It's
Gaza-
definitely not the heart of our debate.
It's not the heart
Well,
of the debate.
I mean the Palestinian debate. The Palestinian debate right now is not about the West Bank, it's about Gaza. That's where the, okay.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is that historically, the people who lived in Gaza are not Palestinians. It is
What? Huh? What do you mean historical? Yes, historically, Palestinians live in Palestine. It just wasn't recognized by any world power, colonial power. But neither was Judea or Israel until 1948. So, what the fuck are we doing? What are we talking about?
there's a fakery of the name through history that we call them Palestinians. The people who lived in Gaza were the Philistines.
I think he's just trying to be clever by appealing to ignorance right now.
Philistines were Europeans. They came from Greece. They came from Cyprus. This is archaeologically definitively established.
Are
And
they
so,
close? Are they more closely related than like Ashkenazi Jews are to the historic people of Israel?
the Philistines have vanished off the pages of history.
That's not the question.
Okay, so there was a here, I'll just bring this up. I just brought up the wiki page because I feel like this is him just trying to appeal to an unknown group that ruled during insert period here, okay? So the Philistine city-states, Ashkelon had Gaza in it, right? These are a bunch of the 9th century. Israel was not. Okay. This is inaccurate, only because there's no way we're going to know these kingdoms as they look like this, okay? And I want to point out that they weren't the first people to, live in the modern day area of Gaza. And there's something else, okay? By the late 5th century BC, the Philistines no longer appear as a distinct group in historical or archaeological records, though the extent of their assimilation remains a subject of debate. Now, They are mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, like it says here, but they do have a Semitic language as well, right? Actually, wait, this one probably doesn't. The Indo-European language that synthesized with Northwest Semitic languages. Yeah, I don't really get the point of this. To me, again, this is Dinesh trying to invoke some very obscure, here's a Snapple fact of like a group that may have settled, again, 1175, and he's just calling these people the real people who lived in Gaza. It's a waste of time. It doesn't actually mean anything.
Question that I asked
He's probably never going to talk about this again. He's probably never even going to use this in a greater argument.
Question.
Mike, the question that I asked you is, would it be the case that the modern Palestinian people would have more ancestry in common with the Jews who currently live in Israel than an Ashkenazi Jew would?
This is a little bit debatable.
Maybe. Ashkenazi Jews are Jews who fled Judea or the area once the Muslim conquest. It's after the Muslim conquest, though. There was a small period of exodus for Jews in the years 900, I want to say, or it was after the First Golden Age or right before. And then there was a period in the Second Islamic Golden Age, before, after again, under a caliphate where Jews were being... Because Jewish people never really had historically any institutional power. It's just a fact. Islam did, and Christianity did. So Jews fled to where Poland is, okay? In that area. So Ashkenazi Jews, also in the year 1400, around there was another large exodus because of turmoil and safety reasons. So Jews fled to go to where Poland is, and once they intermingled, right? Once they had sex with people who lived there, that's what an Ashkenazi Jew is. They're often called more white Jews because Polish area. It's so fucking dumb to me, though. And Ashkenazi Jews have come back because of Israel's, being born again, essentially, right? So what he just said, I mean, there might be more in common, actually, between Palestinians and Jews who stayed in modern-day Israel, or in historical Israel as well, or historical, whatever the fuck you want to call it, doesn't matter to me.
Because some of the people who are from that region
It's a little
of Canaan,
bit debatable.
No,
huh?
well, here's what I'm saying. If
Okay.
you're making it sound like it is 100% of a genetic argument,
Can you
but
answer the question I asked you without obfuscation? Is it the case or not that Ashkenazi Jews generally have less shared ancestry than Palestinians do with the current Jewish population of Israel?
I mean, this is technically true. It is technically true in like a weird racial way, though. To me personally, the distinction between Palestinians and Jews is one of political judgment and political leanings. They're really not that much different. They're both Semitic-speaking language tribes, right? And the distinction that we know today mainly comes from political judgment.
and I'm saying,
Isn't that in fact the case? No, they don't have as much shared ancestry as the Palestinians do who currently live inside of Gaza with the Jews who currently live in Israel. Isn't it true Ashkenazis don't have as much ancestry?
yeah, but Judaism, hold on. Judaism is a combination. You're acting as if Judaism is purely a function of genetics.
He's going to try and bring it back to the biblical religious Judaism, I guess.
Judaism is a function of genetics
No,
plus
you-
history
Okay.
plus religious devotion.
It's not a function of genetics, okay? The reason we say that someone is ethnically Jewish is because back in that time period, that was how we organized what we thought, or how we thought about ethnic or racial differences. It's been essentially it's just part of like a historical term that wouldn't really make sense today. In reality, it's not one that we should ever be using in an argument. In fact, the idea of ethnically being Jewish is not even agreed upon within the Jewish religion. Some Orthodox Jews believe that it must be a certain way. Others are open-ended. You know, they accept new ethnically Jewish people depending on how you convert. So it's all a bunch of fucking, you know, shoegazy anyway. Who the fuck cares?
No,
So
Dinesh,
that's what
you
makes
were
a
making
Jew-
that argument because you say you were making it an argument based on continuity.
If Jews are
but if you
thrown
say the
out-
continuity gets broken the second it is that we have Ashkenazi Jews who still have the right of return to Israel, but though it is the case that they are now outside of that continuity, Dinesh, now outside of that people group, Dinesh.
There's so much to talk about here that I just don't really know. Okay, this doesn't make sense. The Jewish mother, right? Some Orthodox Jewish beliefs. If your mother is Jewish, right? Conventionally, then the lineage and continuity is fine. So what Andrew's saying is not really true even within the Jewish religion. But again, it's not agreed upon. Jews have different ideas of what it means to convert ethnically into being Jewish. Some are like extremely exclusive. Some are not.
Yeah, and let's look at why they're outside. The Jews are forcibly ejected from their homeland.
No, most of them left of their own volition.
They scatter all over the world. Unsurprisingly, they settle in London, they settle in Europe, they settle in Africa, they settle in Asia, but they never relinquish their claim to the land. If they had said, all right, we're out of here, you could then say, all right, other people can.
Huh? You're telling me you leave and you never relinquish your claim to the land?
Can wander in, can claim it's theirs. The Jews never gave it up. They were thrown out.
They did when they left or when they were thrown out. That's the same thing, functionally.
Of course, when they settled elsewhere,
And what
there
is
was some.
your-
Hold on, there was
Okay.
some intermarriage. There was some imports to Judaism by people who converted in. Some people converted out. But the Jewish community, as a tribe and as a community, remained solidly intact through the centuries. I mean, just read.
I'm not so sure that's true. Andrew his argument so far has been fucking lame in my opinion, but Dinesh is he's a magnificent idiot, okay?
Wait, this is hang on.
We're
making
talking about-
You're making a continuity argument, then breaking continuity. You're making a blood and soil argument, then breaking the idea of blood and soil. You mentioned at the beginning the right of conquest, which is your third criteria.
I still think he's going to bring up Romans 11 though.
Then you say the Jews got thrown out of Israel, which means somebody else had conquest. That's how they got the land, right?
That's right.
So that's a legitimate way to get the land, right?
That's right, and it was
Okay.
legitimate to take it back by the Crusades. So using the conquest ethic, I agree. The Ottomans captured the land
Okay.
and ruled it for a long time. The Ottomans lost World War II, and so by the same ethic of conquest, they were displaced and it became part of the British Mandate. And then the UN basically proposed a partition for the... Now, the point
Hang
is
on,
this.
I'm willing to agree to these facts.
Yeah, with any...
I'm not sure how we get to the ought, though. When do we get to the ought?
Well, when we say we get to the ought, as Christians, we're trying to do what's right. We're trying to support the people who are on the right side of the issue. And
Well,
you
I
seem...
That has nothing to do with the modern state of Israel. This is an appeal to Christian morality, which the Christian obligation to that morality is true. Where in what he just said means, and that's why we should feel morally obligated to support the modern state of Israel. Huh?
to be saying...
Hang on. When you say Christians, they have to support what's right.
Yeah.
How do Christians know what's right?
Well...
Christian morality. Looks like Andrew is doing the same thing I just did.
Okay. Well, in looking at what's right, we look at historical arguments, moral arguments.
Are you serious? The Bible?
Christian ethics?
Spiritual
Christian ethics, Christian morality.
continuity, shared moral principles. We also look at the fact that America is a force for good or on the good side in the world, and therefore there are bad guys trying to do us in, and their allies are going to be people that we oppose.
Yeah, okay, so I agree with you in a secular sense that those can be reasons.
Right, but secular
hang on,
reasons-
But you're a Christian. We're talking about whether or not Christians have a moral ought.
Well, Christians
are
are also-
specific moral ought a Christian has based on Christian ethics, our paradigm, our worldview, not the secular lens, not the secular view, the Christian view. Why do we have to support a Jewish state that could name Antichrist? Why?
Because, first of all, you can't make up your mind if it's a Jewish state or a secular state. You alternate both based on
Ethnically
convenience.
Jewish,
In fact, you alternate it within the same
ethnically Jewish.
sentence.
Hang on. Ethnic, don't equivocate. This is pure equivocation. Do you agree with me that there's ethnic Jews and then there are religious Jews?
The majority of Israel is religiously Jewish. Come on now. Are you fucking serious? Secular does not mean atheist.
I agree with that.
Then don't equivocate and say, you can't figure out if it's a Jewish state or a secular state, because
The question he posed is fine. You don't know what those mean.
Dinesh, it can be a secular Jewish state, can't it?
Yes. That doesn't make it atheist, though.
Israel was
Can it be a secular Jewish state, Dinesh?
Israel
Can
was.
it be a secular Jewish state, Dinesh?
Israel.
Can it be a secular Jewish
Yes,
state?
it is.
Thank you.
Okay, but I'm not.
The United States is a secular Christian country. Secular Christian state.
I've never denied it's a secular
You
Jewish
just
state.
got done lecturing me about how I called it a Jewish state, then a secular state.
Right,
like
because
that was a
I think,
contradiction.
on the one hand, I think you're trying to appeal to anti-Jewish sentiment, and for
Oh,
that,
no,
you need,
anti-Semites.
For that,
Hold on 1 sec, I wanna
you
give
need
I wanna
the
give
Jewish
Dinesh-
label.
I wanna
If
give
Israel
Dinesh-
was truly a secular state, a lot of your antagonism would be diminished. I notice, for example, you don't have the same hostility to Great Britain, right? Why not? They're a secular state. But they don't have the Jewish label, so you don't get excited. What I'm getting at here is
Well, hang on. You're saying that
I'm saying that-
can you explain to me just real quick?
Yeah.
Does England by
Yeah, I know, it's annoying.
chance, is there a possibility that they're going to name Antichrist in my lifetime, Dinesh?
What do you mean by name Antichrist? What are you talking
I'm
about?
not talking about naming the Antichrist, but if Jews get together inside of Israel and they name a Messiah, is that going to be Jesus Christ?
Israel is not going to get together and name a Messiah.
okay.
What are you talking about?
You're saying
First
that-
of all, you just said 1 minute ago they're a secular
What?
state. Now you go, what if the secular state names a Messiah?
Okay, inside,
Does that make any sense to
inside
you?
of Israel, do you agree with me?
He's about to say something stupid. Like some absurd statistic about the amount of Israelis prepared to like name the Messiah or something.
That you have the Temple Institute and you have many Jewish organizations that are indeed willing and support the naming of a new Messiah.
There are messy. Messianic communities, apocalyptic Jewish messianic communities that believe that the rebuilding of the temple is a prelude to the end times. So what?
And no, that's not what I asked you. I
Yeah,
asked you if it is the case that if these right-wing elements inside of Israel.
I think the existence of temple-orientated or messianic groups inside of Israel doesn't establish like national political dominance or anything about this debate.
This would be more the right that is doing this than the left-wing elements which are there, which are more secular. If they get together and they do name an Antichrist, or I'm sorry, a Messiah, would that Messiah necessarily be Antichrist? Not the Antichrist, but antithetical to Christ because it's a false Messiah.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. then we have established that right now, by the way, do you know how big this movement is in Israel? Do you?
These guys are predictable, man.
Could you point, for instance, to England and say 30% of the population wants to name a new Messiah? No.
It's irrelevant. Doesn't matter.
Oh, and by the
Well,
way, hang on,
hold
I just
on.
want to point something else out. When you talk about this, you say anti-Semitism. It's the opposite. I'm telling you right now, Jews are safer outside of Israel than inside of Israel, and you know that that's true.
What does this have to do with anything? What is the point of this claim?
Can you explain to me how it's
It's also not true. We have no idea what can be more more dangerous using single metrics, while like presenting the collective autonomy or political autonomy of Israel as like somehow less safe. He's just making shit up.
anti-Semitic for me to point out, using logic, what's obvious to everybody.
It's not.
Okay, now explain what you mean. What do you mean when you say Jews are safer outside of Israel? How are they safer?
Yeah, right now, well, at least in every Western nation, there's not a single Western nation that I can look at that where Jews live and have lived.
This is unproven. Andrew Wilson is not going to use any statistics here. He's not going to specify in any way. He's just going to appeal to what we think might be true and just act as if it's final. That's what's happening right now. I also think this is irrelevant to the conversation. I think it's a waste of time. I think this is dumb.
For the last 40 years, where they're not safer inside of those nations than they are right now inside
And could you tell me why that? Where are you getting this from?
of the state of Israel.
You mean because there's a war going on?
Well, not just because there's a
No, I just want you.
war
I
going
just want you to tell me where you are. Getting this much confidence from. What substantial evidence do you have to support this?
on, but because there's been a continuation of attacks of terror. In other words, from my view,
Okay, there's been continuations of attacks of terror outside of Israel. Could you be more specific?
and while I think this is irrelevant to the debate, I'll
It is irrelevant to the debate. Thank you, Andrew, for figuring that out. I would have told you the exact same thing.
bite on it. From my view, it seems to me that Israel has not.
From my view, he's hedging now. This is not confident answer right here. This is him realizing that he has nothing. Dinesh should have already said what he now has blocked him from saying. This is irrelevant to the debate. Good job, Dinesh. You suck ass.
fulfilled its promise of safety for the Jewish people. It has not done so. And right now, you have more Jews who live outside.
It's called a promise, Andrew.
of Israel than inside of Israel, and they're a lot safer than the Jews who live inside of
Why?
Israel.
Right.
They are not fulfilling the promise of protecting their people group at all. In fact, they're relying on us to do it for them.
Well, it's a pretty astounding claim when Jews not only have, but to this day are, moving to Israel from all parts of the world, willing to endure the risks and dangers that they face in Israel. And here you
Why is he acting like, somehow the Zionist mission, or the Israeli mission, I guess, it's not really biblical, would suddenly make Israel free from any danger, complete freedom from danger or something? This doesn't make any sense.
are from the kind of comfort of Dallas lecturing Israel on whether it's doing an adequate job protecting the Jews who are voluntarily choosing to come there. There are American
How does
Jews who
that
have moved to Israel.
What does that have to do with
and
anything?
there is more danger for them. The reason that there's more danger.
Yes, there is more
Right, but-
danger for
and
them.
but
Yes.
and the reason for that is that Israel is surrounded by Islamic fanatics.
No shit.
Yes, right. Okay. And
So in this
your
really dangerous country surrounded by Islamic fanatics, are they less safe or more safe there than in Western nations, Dinesh?
Well, what does that have to do with the right to defend themselves? Relevant to the debate, okay, but
And are you and
Answer the question I asked like I've been answering yours. Dinesh, is it the case that these people who are in this desert completely surrounded by Islamic lunatics less safe there than they are in Western nations? Yes or
there's literally no way to make this claim. Once again, this is unsubstantiated. Western nations historically did not treat Jewish populations well at all. That's a fact. This doesn't actually mean anything in the greater debate so far. And I don't really see the point of arguing this any further.
no?
Yeah, they are more safe in Western nations with fewer Islamic fanatics.
Why do I have to beat these things out of you when you just agree with me?
Because you are pursuing a tactic of pretending like you're making a point when there is actually no
Points
point
you
to be
agree
made.
with?
If a country based on a common identity in their own ancestral homeland it's like saying I have a ranch. I'm surrounded by outlaws who want to burn down my ranch, rape my wife, kill my kids, and you go, well, why don't you then give up your homeland?
Dinesh is actually correct here. This is a logically sound argument. The argument would be very effective against a simple argument like Jews would be safer somewhere else, therefore they should leave. That's essentially what Andrew's kind of arguing for some reason. I don't know why he's still arguing this, but this is a logically sound argument against them.
Give up your ranch. You're obviously safer if you move somewhere else. And I'm like, no, this actually is my homeland. I have every right to be here. And all I want is the right to fight back against these monsters.
But how does this satisfy the prompt? What about that makes it so Christians are morally obligated to support the modern state of Israel? I have no fucking clue how.
Who also hate you and declare you, America, to be their great Satan.
That's great. I'm glad he's just gonna, freestyle now on how Islamic people hate everyone or something like that. I don't know. He's just gonna. Yeah, I saw you guys clap for that. Fucking Muslims, all they like is murdering, baby. It's just like, it's great. Can we get back?
I'm their little Satan, and you're pretending like you're doing us a massive favor.
You're giving me or describing all sorts of positions to me that I haven't given, which is hilarious. For one thing, let's use your ranch example.
Okay.
You're absolutely 100,000% correct. I have outlaws. They're all around my little ranch, right? It's my ranch. I got the deed. I'm fighting for that shit. Do I have a right to go over to my neighbor and demand that he help?
No.
No, wait, what?
Hold on.
Wait, what?
Well,
did you say no?
I said by itself, no. If your
By
ranch,
itself, no.
yeah. If your ranch was encircled and your neighbor's ranch was not imperiled at all, and if your neighbor had nothing to do with it, then you're right. You would be appealing on the basis of like mercy or common heritage. You would be in Churchill's position because the Nazis had not attacked America.
What the fuck is happening? What are we even talking about now?
America faced no immediate danger from Hitler, and Churchill.
What is happening?
Basically was reduced to begging.
I think Andrew's opening was very bad, Molotov. But thankfully for Andrew, who decided to spend almost 10 minutes talking about gay people and transsexual people and other stupid fucking waste of time that have nothing to do with the biblical obligation to support Israel as a state. He did not once invoke any writer, any bishop, any Eastern Orthodoxy literature that I'm aware of. And I was disappointed. I was actually just disappointed. It was a waste of time. I know that. Christians have a moral obligation using the Eastern Orthodox literature to, they're obligated to people morally, okay? What is evil? And how does that have anything to do with supporting Israel? Or the moral obligation to support Israel? Like, Andrew's opening was trash. He quite literally made no effort to try and explain a single thing about Eastern Orthodoxy. Not a single word out of his mouth was something other than gay people, transsexual people, and one other stupid thing I can't remember. It was that fucking pointless. He does, though. He does. He should be engaging with the prompt. The prompt is, do Christians have a moral obligation to the state of Israel? And there's a lot of parish, textual literacy, historical writing, as well as internal Eastern Orthodox writing that has grappled with this question. And I don't think they do. I don't think Christians do. They most definitely do not have a moral obligation to support the modern state of Israel as if it's like somehow the biblical one. That is damn true. But instead, Andrew spent his entire time talking about gay people and trans people. So, sorry, Molotov. His opening was trash. It was utter trash. But he's arguing against Dinesh. He's arguing against Dinesh. They're lacking all goodness. So I'll ask you the same question, Molotov. Hypothetically, if Israel had a group in power that actually rejected all of the things that he mentioned, abortion, gay people, transsexual people, would that now make it true that you are morally obligated to the state of Israel? Yes or no? Okay, so why the fuck would we bring it up? Why the fuck would we talk about gay people and transsexual people if they don't matter? What is the point? And it is actually true. Israel has a group in power right now that does not agree with any of those things. Abortions, gay people, or transsexuals. So, if everything you just mentioned, except I just told you the people in power are against those things. So, if they're doing the opposite, Molotov, which is what Israel's doing, Israel is wildly fucking pulling back, instituting a complete different framework. So, they're doing the right things. So are we, Molotov. We are a secular country. Secular doesn't mean atheist. Andrew's retarded. He thinks it does mean atheist. I don't know how to tell. I don't know how that's possible still. He's like a grown man. He should know the fucking definition of secular. The majority of secular people on planet Earth are Christian, Molotov. That is a fact. You don't see them doing evil. Not everyone in Israel is even gay. Not everyone, yes, secular Christians. I don't know why this is complicated, man. Secular does not mean atheist. Secular does not mean atheist. The majority of people who are secular are Christian.
But the United States entered in on the Allied side. Why? Because we have historical.
Well, I'm glad you agree to that. It seems like you don't want to defend his opening now, though. I don't really know why secular government. Yeah, I know exactly what definition you're reading, Ollie. I'll just pull it up for you because Rob made the same mistake. So you looked up this, of or relating this, right? Now what you need to do is go further, right? Because secular within a governmental sense just means not adhering to or favoring a specific religion. So, of or relating to the government rather than the church. It's important to make sure you read all the way. Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were doing the Rob North thing. Rob did the same thing or did something like that, and then, yeah. Well, Molotov, remember, my argument here is actually in agreement with, yeah, you can, yeah, is in agreement with Andrew. I don't think the Christian Orthodox, okay, or Eastern Orthodox tradition does not in any way say that Christians have a moral obligation to the modern state of Israel. That is not true. My problem is his opening made no effort to try and argue from that position. It was just something that was wrong, culture war, and ultimately retarded. That's why I take issue with it. It was dumb.
Moral, philosophical, even spiritual continuities with Europe, and we came to the aid of Europe for that reason.
More like
now,
the
Israel
Japanese
situation,
attacked us and blew up our entire Pacific fleet and drug us into a massive war. Did we just forget like a whole big part of this?
I think you've got your dates all garbled. The Germans invaded Poland in 1939. Right?
Yeah.
The United States, yes, did get into the war in 1947, but the point I'm trying to make...
Wait, what? What?
I'm saying that the American ranch was not threatened.
No. What did you say before that?
Okay, well, let me put it this way.
What did you say before that?
The United States...
Hold on. From the
United
audience,
States could have fought against Japan and left the Nazis alone.
Oh, I thought before I was getting my dates all mixed up.
No, you were.
And then you're like,
no,
well, wait a second.
I'm saying the United States had no reason to fight in the European theater when the attack...
What I was expecting, Molotov, is for Andrew to read anything. I was expecting him to come from somewhere within the Orthodox dogma. There's a lot to read in this, man. It's kind of hard. You probably have to do a lot of research. And, I've been working on quite an extensive catalog so I can understand Eastern Orthodox more. Because I feel like the last conversation we had, I didn't actually, to me, it felt like I wasn't exactly knowledgeable enough as I wanted to. So I went and got a lot of Orthodox literature, okay? From McGuckin to Callistos Ware, more Callistos Ware, to, one of the most famous ones. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Andrew Luth, like we just looked at. This is the Cambridge Companion, right? And then the Essential Text and the Handbook, Oxford Handbook. I'm sure you know a few of these, right? And then St. John Chrysostom, very important piece of work for Eastern Orthodox Christians, right? And personally, from the reading I've done of all these things, which is not all of them, there's no way I could read 200 pages, 500 pages, 300 pages. What I did, which is what I think more people should learn how to do, is you look at the chapters, right? And you try to read what is most appropriate, right? Well, he can appeal to Eastern Orthodox here. He could definitely argue from Eastern Orthodox in whether or not they have a moral obligation to the Jewish state, and because of things like this. Against the Jews, and the writings of the New Testament offer an example of inner Jewish rhetoric that builds on and continues a venerable tradition in prophetic literature. Right? You go through it. One can think of the Qumran's community rallying against the polluted Jerusalem temple and its illegitimate priesthood. Blah, blah, blah. There's plenty of places in which you can read. Right? To determine whether or not there's a real obligation for Christians to, go along with the Jewish state. Like this section. Yeah, I didn't mean to argue with you too much. I thought that I was disappointed in Andrew's opening. I feel like it was just lazy.
Except that Germany declared war on us?
Germany did declare war on the United States, but
we had no reason to go to war except for philosophical reasons.
Exactly. And so here you have the Iranian parliament burning the American flag. Here you have Hamas and Hezbollah declaring that we are their enemy, no less.
Come on, Dinesh.
مرگ بر آمریکا یعنی مرگ بر شما چند تایی که اون گروهی که دارید اداره میکنید کشورتون رو، مراد اینه. حالا در این دوره اینان بر آمریکا یعنی مرگ بر شما چند تایی که اون گروهی که دارید اداره میکنید کشورتون رو، مراد اینه. حالا در این دوره اینان، در دوره دیگر هم دیگران. بحث ملت آمریکا نیست. ثانیاً تا وقتی که دولت آمریکا و رژیم آمریکا همین شرارت، همین دخالت، همین خباثت، همین رذالت رو در اعمال خودش داره، این مرگ بر آمریکا از دهان ملت ایران نخواهد افتاد. من توصیم اینه که به اروپایی هم اعتماد نکن. در مورد آمریکا من از 2-3 سال پیش که این بحث‌های مذاکرات مربوط هسته‌ای برقرار بود، دائما هم خصوصی به مسئولین میگفتم، هم در جلسات عمومی در سخنرانی‌ها مکرر گفتم من اعتمادی ندارم به اینا اعتماد نکنید. به اینا اطمینان، به حرفشون، به قولشون، به امضاشون، به لبخندشون اعتماد نکنید. اینا مورد اعتماد نیستن. خب حالا نتیجه این شده که مسئولینی که اون روز مذاکره میکردن خودشون امروز دارن میگن آمریکا غیر قابل اعتماده. از اول بایستی این غیر قابل اعتماد بودن رو تشخیص میدادن، حرکت میکردن.
Dinesh clearly not understanding what Destin America meant. He's very clear about this.
اولا بنده این رو که چرا ملت ایران میگن مرگ بر آمریکا؟ اولا بنده این رو برای حضرات بزرگان آمریکایی روشن کنم. مرگ بر آمریکا یعنی مرگ بر ترامپ و جان بولتون و پومپئو. مرگ بر اینا یعنی مرگ بر سردمداران. ما به مردم آمریکا کاری نداریم.
Whether or not you believe this, that's up to you. But I don't think Dinesh cares about whether or not he does believe this or not. He's probably never seen this. He probably never will. But this is, in my opinion, the way he's presenting it, strikes me as someone who doesn't care whether or not it is true or not.
Exactly. And so here you have the Iranian parliament burning the American flag. Here you have Hamas and Hezbollah declaring that we are their enemy, no less.
So, important clarification, right? Death to America, again, and I see no reason why they would lie in this case, is mainly about American leaders.
Than Israel. We are the infidels from the point of view of Islam. But according to you,
At least
our
in the
ranch is
time
not
period.
threatened. I think it is. I think our ranch and their ranch are both in the sights of the bad guys who have a massive global movement. By the way, they're not content to fight over there.
Hang on.
This still doesn't satisfy the prompt. That means nothing about Christian moral obligation to the state of Israel.
Let me concede a couple of points here. Now we're getting
Okay.
somewhere.
Hey,
That's
Dark.
kind of nice.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that never conflate my ideas here with the idea that I don't think that Islam is one of the worst, most horrific ideologies known to man, because it is. I argue against it often and all the time. But you see, I'm a true America firster, Dinesh.
Yeah.
Neither of these ideologies needs to overlap Christian ideology at all. When you talk about how this country, this 10 million people, are surrounded by enemies, right? Great, I understand. I completely agree. They have the right to defend themselves. Great, I completely agree. Why do we have to go in and defend them, though? You say, well, we have a shared common enemy. I can even grant that that's true. Why is it then that we need to leave that state in Jewish hands if we have to defend it? Why? Why do we have an ought to do that? Why can't we demand Christian immigration to Israel? Why is it that we can't demand, as their protectorate, that we have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Christians move into that area so we can protect our own holy sites, Dinesh? Why not?
Well, number one, 3.8 billion doesn't buy you a whole country. Second of all, we make all kinds of alliances with countries where we don't basically tell them what they should do to their LGBTQ people. We have alliances with Korea, with Japan, with India, with Great Britain. Great Britain is just...
Does Dinesh not understand that the U.S. and Israel, while close in strategic partnership, we actually don't have a NATO equivalent style of treaty? If Israel is attacked, we are under no obligation to somehow just provide reciprocal defense. Or does he not know that? Something tells me he does not know that.
As LGBTQ as Israel. Our alliance with Israel is based upon mutual defense. It's not based...
No, it's not. Wow. No, it's not. There is no NATO-style treaty between Israel and the U.S. In theory, they should, Slayer, but that's not really the argument right now. The argument right now is mutual defense, and we don't have mutual defense with Israel. He's just wrong. We literally don't.
Based upon supporting gay rights or the Pride Parade in Tel Aviv.
What did I expect, though?
No one's saying that we should support that as Christians. We oppose it equally.
Slayer. Look, we'll do this.
What I am saying is that
So then where does the ought come in? I still don't understand where the moral obligation or ought actually comes in here. I've been listening. I've been waiting for it. You have not yet.
So you know how we kind of stop this from happening, Slayer? Is if Russia did attack Romania, we have troops in Romania. And if a U.S. soldier died, it wouldn't be just Romania. That's kind of how we get away with this. So we have 1,000 troops in Romania. If Russia accidentally kills a U.S. soldier or any of the other NATO soldiers, okay, then it wouldn't be, should we come to the aid of Romania? It would be, you attacked France. You killed a French soldier or a U.S. soldier. That's kind of how we reinforce the idea of coming to the aid of somewhere like Romania. And then something Trump is doing that makes it easier for this to actually happen, funny enough, is Trump is trying to pull troops out of these NATO countries, right? Correct. Exactly. It's kind of geopolitical pressure.
Given me you're a Christian and you're a Jew who lives in Israel, and so therefore you have some obligation morally to support you. What is it?
No, man. No. "9/11 was not at Israel's behest, and the war in 91, I think you said you were a veteran, right, Molotov? I can understand the frustration. I don't know which I think you were in early Iraq war, right? Andrew Wilson. That war probably felt like it was just, especially when the troops got to, the commanders and troops got to, Baghdad, and then they found out that there was no weapons of mass destruction. I'm sure a lot of it felt like frustrating and ultimately meaningless. And I can understand the frustration there, but Israel had no part in Saddam Hussein's, fucking terror that he did in the 80s, in the 90s, up until the war in 2003. The problem is that he wasn't even someone who actually did 9/11. Osama bin Laden did, right, with the help of Saudis, the Saudi Arabian government. And it was not revenge, no. The truth is that the person who had the most to gain from doing 9/11 was Saddam Hussein. Because we successfully pushed him out of Kuwait, right? It made sense. But the problem is, early U.S. intelligence knew who it was, and it was not Hussein very early on. So the decision to go into Iraq at the same time was, ultimately it kind of feels a little bit misguided. I know you're talking about the invasion of Iraq. I'm pretty sure U.S. military knew very early on that it was Osama bin Laden with help from the Saudis, months after it happened, if not already when it happened, right? Israel's goal is not greater Israel. A certain subset of Israeli politics is greater Israel. But they're not the majority. They are the winning majority with the Likud party, with Netanyahu's party at the moment. But the majority of Israel does not want what you just said.
I'm saying that in the ensemble of countries where good guys are fighting against bad guys, and let's start with your point. You agree that Islam is a truly pernicious and evil force, no less here than over there,
I
correct?
believe that both ideologies, both Judaism and Islam, both lead to massive problems because they're both heresies. Both of these
but
heresies, from my
even
view,
heresies are not equal in the
That's
sense
true.
that, hold on,
That's true.
the Jews aren't trying to make us Jews. Jews are not in
That's
the
true.
conversion
Jews-
business.
you're right. Jews don't
okay.
evangelize. I agree with
Islam
that.
is not only trying to to dominate us spiritually or religiously, but Islam is the religion of comprehensive law. It covers the whole orbit of life. It tells you how you should sleep and whether you are allowed
Whether
to
you can
fart
own a
when you have
dog.
sex.
Whether you can own a dog. Yeah,
Islam is a manual of instructions of life. Now, here's the point, and this.
Iraq is far more stable than it was before Saddam Hussein was in power. That's just a fact. Oh. The subset of Israeli politics that I'm talking about that Molotov mentioned is they're insane. Okay, they're literally insane. It's a shame that they're ruining Israel's image entirely.
This is, I think, something that's a little hard for us to accept.
The invasion of Kuwait did not torpedo George Bush's re-election chances. That's just not true. George Bush, at the highest point, I think the highest acceptance rate, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, what is it, support, or whatever they poll for presidential support or non-support. After the invasion of Kuwait and the subsequent pushback, was the highest polling support, if I'm not mistaken, for any president in the history of the United States. So it wasn't because of that. It was because of something else. A lot of George Bush's politics was seen as he was not really well liked because he went across the other side to do bipartisan, decision making, and that kind of made his own party dislike him a lot. He started to become like the anti-Reagan and stuff like that. So, taxation was a huge one, Slayer. He campaigned on not increasing taxes whatsoever, and he ended up doing a concession where taxes would be increased, but spending would be decreased, but all people saw was taxation increased. And it did not go well for him.
But it makes a lot of sense.
Yep, that exact line.
Israelis know how to fight Islam and radical
That's the line.
Islam in a way that we don't. Our record in fighting radical Islam is abysmal.
So is theirs.
Their record in fighting radical Islam is outstanding.
It is.
Was Israeli politics more balanced before the second intifada? No, the crazies in government have always been there. I don't know about more balanced. I'm not really sure how I could make that claim. Israeli military politics and Israeli support for, hardline defense has always been there. But the psychotic, Zionist party like Ben Gvir and the Fatah, or the fuck it's called, or the Kanat, I can't remember, or the Canute, they've always been there. They're just psycho.
Yeah, and in fact, all the things that
so they wouldn't need our help
with
that, then, would they? They
is
wouldn't need the help of this nation that's just terrible at fighting these crazy Islamists. They're so good at it, right? They don't need our help.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Do they need our help?
Our debate has nothing to do with giving money to Israel or arms to Israel. Let me ask you this.
Well, then what are we supporting?
Well, when
That's actually a really good point. It's not about a generic obligation. He's 100% correct here. We'll see where he goes, though. He's probably going to try and narrow the argument a bit, right?
We're just cheering? Yay!
No.
What are we doing?
Okay, so when you say that somebody is morally if I were to say to you, you know what? You've got a kid who lives in a really bad neighborhood. A lot of bad guys out to kill your kid. You're morally obligated to support your kid.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't follow.
Okay. So naturally, Dinesh D'Souza is going to have to show us how. The premise of this debate is Christians have a moral obligation to support Israel. So Dinesh D'Souza brought in a good analogy right now, the parent-child one. But the problem here is that he's going to have to make it probative. He's going to have to try and show or substantiate what determines this moral obligation. He can't just leave it at this. So we'll see where he goes.
That you have to buy your kid a house, buy him a gun. You might practice tough love on the kid. You might tell the kid, you better cut this shit out. You might have all...
Again, Christianity may have followed from Judaism and Jewish roots, but that in no way is sufficient enough to prove that Christian obligation must be eternal and towards the Jewish modern state.
All kinds of instructions that the kid will oppose.
Sure.
You will also accept that your interests and the kid's interests will sometimes diverge. So I'm admitting all of this with regard to Israel.
He's going to have to make this probative. If he does not give a reason to make this analogy probative, some substance, instead of just slapping on an analogy that sounds good, then he's failed at this.
I'm simply saying
But hang on.
that the obligation to support is generic. It doesn't specify, give him 3 points.
Sure. Again, Christianity may have been born out of Judaism. That does not mean that Christians somehow need to morally or eternally have an obligation to the modern state of Israel. Those are two different things.
0.8 billion. Let me ask you this.
Well, hang on. I want to use this analogy. I want to use this analogy real quick because let's go back to your analogy. I think it's fine.
Okay.
You say, hey, there's like a mom and her son, or a dad and the son, and they're in a rough
And
neighborhood.
you're saying the son
And
is a
you say-
heretic. He doesn't go to church.
No. You say, hey, there's a moral obligation for you
The Christian God is not different from the Jewish God. They're the same God.
to like get your son out of this neighborhood, and then you give a bunch of qualifiers. Nesh says, that means maybe you tell him to stop doing this, or maybe you take this action, or maybe you take that action, or you do blah blah blah. But the whole point of this is to say that there's a moral obligation there with a must, ought, do something.
Andrew correctly pointed out what I just said. He's going to rip him a new asshole, isn't he? He's asking him to make it probative.
In order to prevent this from happening to their son, right?
Right.
Okay, great. What's that with Israel?
Oh, man. Fucking ruined right here.
So our interests and Israel's interests diverge on.
Jesus was a Jew of Judea. Israel was not a thing when Jesus was alive. It was under Roman rule and the province of Judea. Arabs' lineage is not tied to Islamism. So no, saying that they're not there for another 500 years is wrong. Arab history goes back pretty far. So does Persian history, actually. But Persians and Arabs are not the same. This is one of the reasons that Arabic and Arab, is a Semitic language, just like Hebrew is. So, Christ was the one leading Israel in the Old Testament. That is not true, but I can see why. I know Christian thought needs to somehow, induce these prophetical ideas from the Old Testament in, but the Old Testament does not ever mention Jesus and has no idea who Jesus is. This is post-biblical Christian interpretation doing the work.
many points.
Uh-huh.
Israel would like right now for the United States to go all the way, pulverize Lebanon, have regime change in Iran. Trump is saying no.
Yeah.
This is a recognition where we are saying our interest is the
Yes, they
same
were.
as yours insofar as pulverizing Iran and breaking its military back. Once we have done that and stopped the nuclear possibilities, we're ready to quit. We're ready to go home. If you want to continue, you can. If the
This is just gibberish, dude.
Yeah, I
Where
have
do
no
we get
idea-
to the
no idea
moral
what he's
odds?
saying.
Where do we? You still haven't given me a. You have a moral
Now-
obligation, like that mom does, to move the kid out of that rough neighborhood with all of those bad guys. Wouldn't I just use that analogy and say, okay, great, then we have an obligation to move 10 million Jews among the Western nations to get them out of the neighborhood of the bad guys?
And that would be your solution?
No, I'm saying if I'm using your analogy
But,
for the
well-
obligation, wouldn't you say that the mom should move the kid out of the neighborhood
The
with the mom?
analogy, the analogy was intended to clarify the meaning of what does it mean to have a moral obligation to support. No analogy travels on all fours.
I
so if
agree.
I say, okay, I'm going to get
Well, all analogies must travel on one leg. And that leg needs to first be called, is it probative or is it not? Does your analogy service whatever you're trying to say or analogize to? And you've done nothing of that, Dinesh.
my kid out of the bad neighborhood, it may be that I decide, okay, the kid can stay there, but I need to help with providing security. Or I need to make sure that I go visit every week to make sure that the apartment isn't being wrecked.
Yeah, but like, why is Israel the kid and why is the U.S. the parent? Why?
Where does the moral obligation here come in for the United States,
It
sovereign
comes so-
nation,
it
and the
comes from the-
Christians, the Christians inside of it specifically? That's what we're talking about.
There you go.
The Christians. Where does their obligation come in to help the Jews in Israel do fucking anything? Where's the obligation for that? Where?
Well,
what?
He's correct. That's, at least he's seeing the problem with the analogy is that it's an analogy that's not probative.
Do you agree that
Like, he's just assuming that this relationship is the same, but like, why? Why?
Iranian regime and the forces of Islam
Literally has nothing to do. If your analogy here is dependent on some other sovereign nation to tell you whether or not you have a moral obligation to Israel, you're doing it wrong, and this is fucking fake. Not working.
in the region are evil.
Sure.
Okay.
I believe that their ideology
Their ideology is
Here,
evil.
let's
And
do-
would you agree
let's
that
differentiate
Israel,
a couple of terms.
that Israel,
Yeah.
in fighting to change, clean up, remake, transform the Middle East, and produce... Hold on.
Hang on, I got to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
Just the terms. When you say evil, for me, evil, the doing of evil, would be moving away from participating in the energies of God in Jesus Christ. That's how I would differentiate what evil is from good. Good would be participating in those energies. So when you say the ideology of Islam, you don't believe Arabs are evil, right?
No.
You believe Islam, the ideology is evil, right?
Right.
Okay,
but
Jews,
think
from
you're-
my perspective, that ideology is also evil.
Right, but I think we're talking about evil in two completely different senses. There is a
How?
sense in which heresy is evil, right? Because
Yeah.
it departs from the theological straight path. In fact, orthodoxy means a straight path.
Uh-huh.
Etymology, I guess, sure.
Heresy means a deviation.
Sure.
Except all orthodoxy will deviate in some way. It has to, but fine.
Talking about evil in a more natural law sense, by which I mean
I don't
things
believe
like,
in natural law.
You don't believe in natural law?
No.
Okay, do you believe
I'm
in
not
the
a
Ten
natural law
Commandments?
proponent because I'm not a Catholic.
Okay, so this is incorrect. Wilson is okay in rejecting the Thomistic natural law system found in Roman Catholicism, okay? But Orthodox explicitly sources, okay, natural law, human nature, moral knowledge, and the Gork, if I'm not mistaken. The introduction to Orthodox explicitly said so. that Orthodox law is based partly on human gift of human nature. So Wilson right now is, I think, just kind of showing his ignorance. Again, I wish he would have actually read more Orthodox literature. That'd make me a little happier.
Sure, the Ten Commandments are fine.
Do you believe that well,
Correct. Thomas Aquinas.
I mean, do you believe that to take a 5-year-old kid and forcibly transition that kid is evil?
Of course.
Maybe he might tell me he's not rejecting every form of natural law reasoning. I'm not debating him. I don't know. But Wilson wouldn't get away with this if I was talking to him.
Okay. Now, is that the same as the kind of evil that you were describing when you were talking about Christian heresy? I mean, in other words, Judaism is a heresy, and that's one type of evil, I grant. I'm saying there's another type of evil.
I just want to make sure.
Murder is evil.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I got it right. So when you're making the differentiation, you're saying this is evil, and this is evil, and this is a lesser evil than this one.
I'm saying that this is a force for good in combating this evil.
Yeah, but you're still saying both are evil.
Well,
if you're saying both are evils, you want us to support the lesser evil.
Well,
Okay. Can a morally flawed state perform a just action? Or a morally not flawed action? Well, yeah, they can. Can a legitimate, morally unflawed state perform a flawed action? Well, yeah, they can as well. Yes, you're correct. So if you're having a political conversation, I think whatever they're doing here, which is treating both entities right now as good or evil, is skull-fuckingly retarded. Like, it's just hurting. It is beyond dumb. You can't get anywhere if you're just going to be so coarse that you can't even perform any serious political conversation where you just call an entire country evil or good with nothing to show why. And even still, it still doesn't work. It's dumb.
I certainly do believe that. There are many cases of supporting the lesser
But then
evil.
aren't you admitting Jewish ideology is evil?
Well, I'm admitting that Jewish theology is a heresy, or at least
and that is evil.
It's evil in its rejection of Christianity. I agree with that. Theologically, of course, but that's,
so you're just saying support evil to stop evil.
No.
Support evil and to stop evil. Perfect.
So the man who insisted that Israel is a secular state makes a convenient switcheroo and is now making Israel a theological state which is out of sync with Christianity.
You are disqualifying every country on planet Earth then, Molotov. I hope you know that.
Go one way or the other. You're trapped on your own.
Actually, perfect. I love this trap.
Okay.
Is secular ethics evil?
Why would secular ethics be evil? It allows for Christianity. I don't understand what this trap is. Maybe Dinesh, because he's tied his entire stupid persona to this idea that secularism is evil, right? But simply just saying the definition of secular here would probably suffice, right? How is it evil? All it does is advocate for neutrality in government. It doesn't say you can't be Christian. In fact, it embraces Christianity in a neutral way, as shown in the United States, predominantly Christian. So I don't understand what this trap is.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was a trap. It's because Dinesh is retarded.
Oh, shit. You got me.
Wow. We have had secular ethics in the world for about 500 years
it's
at
evil.
least.
Right? It's
And we
evil.
have secular ethics that dominate this country right now.
Uh-huh.
Would you say that the United States right now is evil?
I would say that the secularists who are in charge of it are fucking evil.
Okay.
The majority of them are Christian. The founders, majority, were Christian and secular. The bravado here doesn't do much for me. You know, it's more of like a signal. It's like an identity signaling thing he's doing to try and show that, you know, he's social dominance orientation right now. Evil. But it really just kind of shows that he's ignorant.
Okay. But
Evil fucking bastards.
But notice that when it comes to Israel, you foist the evil on the nation.
Oh,
when
no.
it comes to America, you're pro-American.
He's not a secularist. I guess he's not evil.
Your 4th of July, your 250th anniversary, your America rah rah rah, but there are these bad secular people in the country. You're against them, but you're not anti-American.
Sure. Eastern Orthodox is kind of popular right now, Molotov. But are Protestants secular, evil? Eastern Orthodox, most of them are secular too. They just, newly ones probably don't want to say they are, but.
Are you?
Perfect. Let's use this
Are you?
exact same analogy.
Okay.
We'll use the exact same analogy back the other way. Right here in the United States, there's tons and tons and tons of Christians. They're not evil, right? We don't consider them evil. They're
Well,
not evil. Trinitarian Christians are not evil.
What kind of Islamicize, which is not the correct way to do that, which makes me feel like you're not a Muslim. But I'll bite. What kind of Islamitize do you think is going to happen? Which one? Or do you think all of Islam's the same? Oh. Are all Shias the same? All Shia forms of government the same? Okay, so which Shia Muslim Islamitism or Islamitize is going to happen? Twelver? You think Twelver? I am not acting anyway. I'm just curious. Smug, I'm not the one who came in here and said that you can't wait for your specific brand of Islamitism or Islamic faith to Islamitize the West. I feel like that would be smug. Don't you think? So, to be clear, the Ithna Ashira, right? That's the 12. Why do you think the 12ers are going to Islamitize the West. Is he still here? I don't really get to talk to Islamic people that much, so we can have fun with this. Come on. Nothing? Well, I guess he went into hiding. He went into hiding like the 12th Imam does. I guess I'll wait for his eventual return. Oh, wait, it won't happen. Later, bitch.
You don't believe it? I don't believe it. Great. That's not an evil ideology. The secularists in charge of the United States are evil bastards with an evil ideology. You agree. Let's move it over to Israel. Same analogy. If you have a Jewish state, the secular Jews, evil ideology. The Jewish theology, which also exists there, evil ideology. So both of these that we're combating are evil ideologies. You want us to support both of those evil ideologies to take out another evil ideology when right here we have an evil ideology we're combating in our own nation in order to support the ideology which isn't evil, Christianity. Perfect.
Now, it is a fact of the world, and it is a fact of the Bible that many...
Okay. Really quick. Does being wrong, okay, let's just say you are wrong theologically. Does being wrong imply that you are now somehow evil? Well, yeah, it doesn't. Okay. Well, how about this? Christians have a moral obligation to support people, okay? I mean individually, against arbitrary wrong. That's a fact. So Christians need correction for what? I mean, being wrong doesn't make you evil. I know that. And then, because a Christian is morally obligated to every individual, if a Jewish civilian, okay, was being attacked, then they have a right to protection, right? You don't even have to endorse Judaism to believe in that. So Andrew's argumentation here is wrong. It's bad.
Figures, nations, evil in themselves.
The way he's framing this, every cooperation with a non-Orthodox state would be considered evil.
Are nevertheless, A, on the side of good, or B, the chosen instruments of God.
That's wrong.
God will frequently use not only flawed, but downright evil people. God talks...
Is he about to bring up Samson? Don't bring up Samson, motherfucker.
In the Bible about the fact that the Assyrians, monsters, pagans, are, quote, the rod of my justice.
Yes,
God is
uses
using
evil
the
to do good.
Assyrians.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, the 12ers believe that the hidden imam is hidden still, waiting to present himself.
So why isn't he going to use the Muslims to do good?
And this is also true
then?
of individuals. All the things that you talk about that are bad in Israel today were going on in the Old Testament. The worshipping of the golden
I don't know. I scared him off.
calf, all kinds of
Yeah, but
sexual
do you
immorality.
understand why this is illogical?
Here's why. Because you're drawing the fallacious conclusion that somehow if the Jews are secular, if they have LGBTQ.
Does anyone else find it funny that Dinesh invoked the Isaiah 10 verse of God using the Assyrians? He says Assyrians are the rod of God's anger via Isaiah 10, but doesn't the same passage say that he does not intend them to serve God? Like literally the same fucking passage. Its intention is destruction and conquest, right? It has nothing to do with serving God. So why is Dinesh D'Souza acting as if like this is even relevant or accurate when Isaiah 10 again explicitly says it is not an intended instrument of God? The fuck is going on? Whatever.
Rallies, somehow they have ceased to be the people of God. They are no longer sort of real Jews. They are now secularists. They are outside our area of moral concern. And I'm simply suggesting that the God of the Bible takes the opposite view. Never once does God say, you know what, you Jews, because you worship the golden calf, I'm taking back all my promises to Abraham. Give me the land back because I never gave it to you unconditionally. I gave it to you conditionally, hand it back over.
Does
God ever say that in the Bible?
He just punishes them.
That's what I thought. Okay. Kind of weird, Dinesh. Why is Dinesh saying that God intended, therefore God's intended purpose? Arrogant Assyria also judged. Ah, Assyria, the rod of my anger, the club in their hands is my fury. Against the godless nation I send him, and against the people of wrath I command him, to take spoil and seize plunder, and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. But this is not what he intends, nor does he have this in mind. But it is at his heart to destroy and to cut off nations, not a few. For he says, are not my commanders all kings? Is not Kauno like Carchemish? And so on. As my hand is reached to the kingdom of idols, whose images were greater than those of Jerusalem and Samaria, shall I do not or not do to Jerusalem and her idols what I have done to Samaria and her images? So, what's the important part of this? This is not what he intends, nor does he have this in mind. This is literally just God saying, oh, well, it looks like they are attacking the heart of nations and destroying them. But this is not what I intended. To say that this is God's instrument, talking about Isaiah 10, is laughably fucking stupid.
No, I'm not making that claim.
And Israel has been punished.
You're just putting words in my mouth. Again, back to the ethical claim. None of this even matters. It's completely irrelevant to what you're even talking about.
Why is it irrelevant?
I'll tell you why. This is hilarious.
You think the character of God is irrelevant to our discussion of good and evil?
You made the claim that God will use evil for good. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, great. You agree with that. Then why do we assume that he's going to use the evil ideology of the Jew for good, but not the Muslim?
Well, God may well...
Hang on.
Yeah.
I want to repeat that question because I want you to answer it.
I'm answering it.
Why should we assume that it's only Jewish people who we both agree hold an evil ideology instead of Muslims who we agree hold an evil ideology that God...
Okay, so Dinesh is in a corner again. Good job, Andrew. Andrew should say something like, well, Israel has a covenant with God, an everlasting covenant. That would most definitely maybe overcome this. Even then, he kind of dug himself into a hole. It's true that God can use any nation, technically, but there is a covenant with the election and covenant specifically with Israel. That's the only way out I can see for him right now.
God won't use them for good. Why do we just instantly assume it's only going to use Jewish
See
people
what he
for
says.
good?
Well, number one, we are fallible people in the world.
Okay, so he's fucking retarded. Got it.
So we have to look and make judgments. It is possible to argue.
Okay, so he's fucking retarded.
For example, someone might say, due to the fact that America has become like Sodom and Gomorrah,
So he's actually just stupid. Okay.
God used 9/11 as a form of divine punishment on America, right? You could make that argument.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's a very speculative type of argument.
I agree.
The same type of what we've been doing the entire time now, talking about evil between Islam and Israel.
Yeah, and so I
So
wouldn't,
is the
wouldn't
argument
make
that
it, but
God's
in
going to use
theory,
Jews to do good.
in theory, it's not impossible.
Speculative. That's a speculative argument to say God's going to use this evil ideology to do good. That's your argument.
So my argument was not, quote, God is using the Jews who are evil to do good. My
No, with an
argument
evil
was a
ideology.
refutation. Hold on. Let's be really clear.
Okay.
You basically were saying these are bad people and they are outside of God's purposes. And I said many times God uses people, even people who are have completely rejected him, as his instruments for his divine purposes.
Like Muslims.
He's done it repeatedly. Now,
Like Muslims?
Now, I don't deny that in principle, God could use the Indians, the Muslims, the Chinese. Yes, God can use those
That's
people.
the whole point, man.
What-
You
the point
just
of
are
what?
defaulting for some reason to say only this specific people group who I think holds an
They do have election and covenant. That would be something he'd need to say right now, right?
evil ideology, which you did say. That people group
Well-
God's going to use for good. These other people groups. So
Well,
you're asking
first
us
of
to
all-
pick. You're asking us to pick an interest between two evil ideologies. Pick an
Evil. We have not. Yeah, it was not very effective. We have not established that they're evil, by the way.
choose which ideology we prefer because you think that God's going to prefer that we prefer one of those evil ideologies.
Well,
Dinesh.
first of all,
that's the reduction of your logic.
First of all, you're arguing as if there is no connection between God the Father. I mean, if you look at the Christian Bible, you could almost say that
Magic Jew blood?
Hold on. You could almost say that the Old Testament is the biography of God the Father, the Gospels are the biography of God the Son, and the Acts are the biography of God the Holy Spirit. This is the Trinity right there. And
Christian scripture rooted in Judeo-Christian, or sorry, Jewish scripture is only one part of the Trinitarian. I'm not sure if you can say this. The Trinity is a post-biblical invention. And Orthodox Christianity would teach something like the Father, Son, Holy Spirit are acting inseparably. So the Old Testament contains part of that, but in no way, as well as biblical Christian scripture, in no way is going to present the Trinitarian idea. I don't know why the fuck you just said that.
this is the historical unfolding of the Trinity in the Christian story. And now you're pretending like there is no relationship between Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, God the Father,
Shouldn't be saying his name.
and the Jews?
Are you
Is that what you're
pretending
saying?
that there's no relationship between God the Father and Christians?
Yes, no, I'm saying,
So,
I'm saying
what's
that
really what's hilarious here.
No,
and
I'm saying-
we can
I'm
break it.
saying-
Hang on, we'll break it down. I'll break it down with you. I'll go right along with
Okay.
you.
Would you
Jews
agree?
have magic Jew blood? Yes or no?
Have what?
Magic Jew blood, so they're preferred by God.
Well, God isn't picking based on magic Jew blood. God is picking based upon a
Like covenantal, Jewish scripture and the covenant can be reduced to genetics like this.
particular community that is built around a set, hold on, on a set of divine instructions, right?
I think Andrew's point's dumb, but ultimately his point still serves the prompt. Even if ancestry is true, covenantal ancestry, right? Why does that create a moral obligation for Christians? Why?
It's
to support the modern Jewish state.
Commandments,
Does this
prophets.
particular community have a specific DNA by chance?
Sure.
That's not how this works. He's just being funny, I guess, but it's not going to work. Well, it'll probably work in this debate, but...
Got it. So, and we could trace that through their blood, right?
I think both of these people are pretty stupid right now. Andrew's definitely winning, though. The prompt, again, is do Christians have a moral obligation to support the state of Israel? I know that Andrew's an Eastern Orthodox Christian, and I don't think there is an argument to say that he has a moral obligation to support the state of Israel. Not only the primary reason would be because the biblical state of Israel and the modern state are not the same thing. One is a political judgment, the other is biblical. And as far as I know, there is no real Eastern Orthodox tradition that would imply that there's a moral obligation that's necessary.
So you would basically just say that people who have this particular blood are favored by God.
Covenant. It'd be covenant.
Well, no more. I mean, you could make the same argument about Christians. Christians have DNA.
Exactly. So, and
Right,
I would
but-
make the argument, I would make that exact argument about Christians. What's kind of hilarious here, as we're kind of
I
moving
don't know why you would make that argument about Christians.
through this, we're finding out that, one, you still have no moral ought for why it is that Christians are supposed to support Jews or Israel. I haven't heard a single argument.
Well, that's because
not one.
you're-
And by the way,
That's because you're setting a standard where I am a Christian monk sitting on a sacred pillar in the Himalayas, and you're now asking me, give me a reason to support Israel.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Christians living in the world where we recognize that in the world that there's a lot of admixture of good and evil, and there might be good people in an
You sure weren't acting like that a few minutes ago.
Islamic world, but the Islamic ideology is bad. There might be good people
the
in
Jewish
Iran
ideology
right
is
now.
also bad by your own admission.
Jewish theology is bad. Judaism isn't, quote, an ideology. Judaism.
What? Okay. Ideology. Yeah? Fucking what?
Is a theology, and I agree.
Where do you get your ideology from?
Well,
your
what
theology.
Well, what I
You
was
know
getting
who said
at,
that? You in your book.
Well,
You in your own book said
I
that.
said a little minute ago, and you agreed that Islam is a comprehensive ideology.
Fuck!
That includes family law, divorce, honor killing, Sharia. Judaism is not an ideology in that sense. It is not trying to create a sort of
Dude's out there in the rip current, fucking treading water. Help, I'm drowning.
comprehensive supervision over the world.
Except
Islam
its own
is.
state? Its own state?
It
with its
doesn't do
own
it in
laws?
Israel. Israel doesn't have. When is the last time you've heard, for example, of Jews being stoned for adultery, like in the Old Testament?
Oh,
Happens all.
A gay man was stoned by Christians in the U.S. I think in 2018. It happens fairly often still. So what?
All the time?
Forever, not in forever.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course.
So in
Just not true, but fine.
other words, there's a big difference. In Islam, you still do get stoned. You
Yeah,
get thrown
sure.
out of windows.
You still get stoned in Christianity. It's amazing that these two don't even know that.
Sure.
You get killed by your own family members. You get killed for leaving the
But
religion.
nobody's.
This is. Yeah. This is still in no way. Okay. Who's getting kicked out? Wait, who's getting kicked out? The Bible does. The Bible says to a lot of Christians that you should stone gay people. Wait, Trump's gonna kick out Christians? Is that what I just saw? Wait, so he's gonna kick out who? Who's he gonna kick out? What the fuck is a Jewish Christian? Christ specifically mentioned something about casting the first stone for judgment, yes. He never condemns the actual act, though. He talks about being the first one. It's a lesson in humility, not against punishment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Christ talks a lot about judgment. What the fuck? I have no idea. What does that even mean, dude? From Jew descent? Would Jesus himself wouldn't even be allowed in this country then? The fuck? You guys are funny. Where the fuck do you guys come from? Okay, so all Christians, though, need to go. If Jesus himself would be kicked out, then what else is left, dude? Not if they never get a day in court, okay? That's why due process is important. ICE was doing this last year, by the way. Hey, Nico, let me give you a little scenario, okay? Let's see if I can help your fucking brain. What is due process for? Do you have any idea what it's for? Try and type fast, by the way, so I don't get bored of this conversation. Can you do that for me? Like, what is the point? of due process. One sentence only. Okay, so due process allows the accused to stand before the accuser in court, right? To have their rights respected and represented. So let me be as crystal clear as I can with your ass. If the government doesn't respect due process for people, not just Americans, that's why in the Constitution it says very clearly people, not citizens. And they knew the word citizen then, but this is on purpose. Let's say the government decided that they wanted to put you in jail, Nico. You would say, well, I can just show up in court, right? I can, I have due process. I'm an American. You know what the government's going to do? Oh, he's not an American, so no due process. You know what you say? That will never happen. I'm an American. I get due process. Well, you'd have to prove that in court, wouldn't you? And if you never get the chance to go to court, what happens to you? What happens to you, Nico? What happens to you? Nothing? I mean, yeah, I guess you just go to jail, go to prison, get deported somewhere, even though you're an American. Because all they had to do to avoid due process for your ass was say you're not a citizen. Fun. That sounds brilliant, dude. Man, I wish you fucking wrote our Constitution. Fucking everything would be better, wouldn't it? All of us would still have due process. Great. Does that mean you're an American? There's plenty of white people in Europe. Who the fuck cares? What else you got? Just, what the fuck am I doing? Like, where do these people come from? It's so stupid. Only for citizens. Okay, great way to make your government be able to do whatever they want. Okay, so people who look like they might be Americans are the only ones who get due process? But again, that doesn't make any sense either, because then the government could just get rid of you without you having a say. You would be giving your government the ultimate ability to remove you. Because the truth is, they don't even have to stick to that. They could be like, we don't really like Nico. Fuck him. I think we should send you to El Salvador. What do you say to that? Would you say that you're an American citizen? What if I say you're not? And then we just send you there. You're like, oh, I get due process though. And then I say, no, you don't, because you're not an American citizen. And you say, well, yeah, I am. I can prove it. And we say, we're not going to do due process though. We're just going to force you to leave. So you'll never have the ability to prove that. You see how stupid what you just fucking said is? How fucking retarded it is? God damn, bro. I can't. I like to think I can explain a lot of things, man. I can explain how stupid you are, but I can't explain how Hitler fixed Germany because it's just not possible. It's just inaccurate, so I'm going to have to plead the fifth on that one. There are Jews in Germany. There were Jews in Germany during the Third Reich. You stupid fuck. I'm just like, there were literally Jews still in Germany during the Nazis' reign. You stupid fuck. Nick Fuentes is probably not someone I would look to for any historical accuracy. He literally thought that the Glorious Revolution, by William of Orange, was led by Jewish people. He is retarded. He's actually stupid as fuck. Stop beating those things. I bet if you went, I don't care. You're not an American citizen, remember? You're going to go to El Salvador, man. That's what you want. If I was in power, the next rocket to the sun would have your ass. American citizen or not, dude. He'd be on the next rocket too. Just know that your life would be in great service to humanity. The amount of data and knowledge we would get, it's a risk I would have to have you take. Okay?
He's making a dispute there. The dispute that we have is whether or not
and so the
Christians
point I
have
was
any
making,
obligation to morally to support Israel or support Jews who you, by your own admission, you say is an evil ideology.
And I was saying that Israel, against that ideology, is doing a lot of good. If there's a ring of pedophiles and a cop decides, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to beat the shit out of all these people and I'm going to save all these kids, you go, wait a minute, isn't the cop a Jew? And I'm like, yeah. And you're like, well, isn't he a heretic? Doesn't he have the wrong ideology? Shouldn't we be rejecting him as much as the pedophiles? Dinesh, why are you making arguments for the lesser evil?
This is backwards. It would be like,
how is it backwards? I'm saying that
it would be
Israel,
like a cop who was also a pedophile beat the shit out of 10 pedophiles.
How is the cop?
And I'm like, okay, that's
we just
right on,
agree.
Pedophile cop who beat
Wait
up
a minute.
Like, what are you talking about?
So pedophilia,
it's like an evil ideology. You make me want to pick and choose, but why? Why should I support either? Why? Why?
Right. So because the cop is a drunk and he insults his wife and he got divorced and he has a mistress, we're not going to support him in his campaign against the pedophiles because he's no better than the pedophiles because they're both evil, according to you.
No, you're taking. So if you want to take the extremes there, we can actually do that, and we can look at that.
Why is it an extreme? Let's
sure. Hang on. We'll look at
pedophilia.
Same logic.
Is Sharia.
Yeah, hang on.
Pedophilia equals Sharia. It's the comprehensive Islamic law.
Are you going to use your national resource or your resources? Let's just use your same example. We'll use the example of the drunk.
Yeah.
He's a drunk, and we're all morally against drunkenness, let's say. I mean, I'm not
me, but
I'm
perhaps
not.
You are.
But let's just say in this hypothetical that you are. So the drunk cop comes in, he beats up all the pedophiles, and we go, right on, man. You beat up these pedophiles, that's great. And what you're doing is a lesser evil, because we assume in this analogy that drunkenness is evil, right?
Exactly.
Now, are we going to give this guy any resources to go get beer?
Yes, if he did a good job. I would give him some resources.
So you're going to support a thing you consider to be evil?
No, I'm not supporting the evil. I mean, if you ask me if I was
then what makes him evil? What makes the drunk evil in this analogy?
What I'm getting at is that the cop who did this deserves a medal. If you ask me, are we morally obligated to support cops
great.
who are
Give him a
kicking
medal.
the ass
Here,
of pedophiles?
we'll go
my
over every
answer is
time-
yes.
every
And
time
it
a
has
Jewish
nothing to
person-
do with what their
Yeah.
private lives are like and whether this is like.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is you agree. Let's talk about what we agreed. You agreed that Islam represents a kind of comprehensive evil. You agreed that because that is the case.
No, I agree. Both of these ideologies encompass
and are they
an evil.
So you would say, for example, that Judaism poses the same menace, for example, to Western civilization, to your and my religious freedom, to taking over America that, say, Islam does.
I would say that the embrace of secular Jews and that being a part of the extension of the ideology of Judaism, exactly because they don't have the same formations that you just explained
Pants,
Islam
bro.
does,
They're so
does
tight.
create an existential threat of progressive liberal ideology
tight.
all the time, including in their own nation, Israel. And I do consider that to be the existential threat of humanity right this second. Progressivism is the worst threat to planet Earth right now.
I agree.
Even above Islam, for now.
I agree. See, okay, so this is why debates like this are good. I would argue that the primary authors of Western secularism are, well, if I had to name a single religious group, it would have to be the Episcopalians. Why? Because where is progressivism the most ensconced in America? The answer is in the Northeast. That's why the guy from Maine stood up in the beginning and said, Maine has been ruined. It hasn't been ruined by Jews, by the way. It's been ruined by white, Protestant, Anglicans for the
Agreed.
most part, but Unitarians. Okay.
So these heresies lead to
Dude, we know you agree with them. Okay? Can I ask you a question? Why do you hate Jews? One sentence answer. One sentence, okay? Give me one sentence. Make your case. Fine, two sentences. Twisting my arm. That works him. That's why. Here we go. They are rich pedophiles. I do have my title is Debate Me on Anything. Open viewer panel, so. What do you mean? I have an answer. Markets are created when institutions actualize them. So whenever any trade happens, whenever work for debt, as in labor, right? Feudalism, you could think of like the first markets created. Anthropologically, I think we transition from like egalitarian forms of government to some market-oriented ones. I'm not really sure. 3,000? Maybe as early as like 3,000 BCE, and sometimes, most likely, Greco-Roman period. He's kind of just a Nazi, it seems. I wanted to respond to that, but I just didn't really get it. I'm not really sure when the first markets were created, man. I feel like I should know that.
Bad outcomes
Right.
due to the fact that they push in
I'll find that out for you.
secular idea. But just like you would make the claim, and I would agree with you, that many Protestant ideologies.
Nazis were fascists. They were not socialist. They had socialist in the name, but Nico, you wouldn't be confusing the label that one gives themselves with what they actually are, right? Like North Korea's official government is the Democratic Republic of North Korea, right? The Democratic Peoples of North Korea or something. Is North Korea democratic? Yes or no? Ah. North Korea is communist. Got it. Do the people of North Korea have control over the means of production? Yeah? Okay, you stole that directly from Trump, except you kind of fucked up. He says, since World War I. That's what he says. They find me, man. I don't find them. You know, for once, I think I'm willing to say that that's probably true. Shame.
Especially out east, which is where it landed first, right? What we end up seeing is that they push in progressive value structures. The problem that you have with Judaism is it does the
Yes.
same thing.
Hello.
It often pushes for secular ethics, secular values.
Run by Jews. This debate is about whether or not Christians have a moral obligation to support this modern state of Israel. And also, I guess, Jewish people, according to Nico Beast. Oblivious. I think you accidentally forgot to put goodness of mankind is being quenched by the Jews. All right? Or something like that. I have to get going, guys, because I got a typo. I have to go to work. But thank you all for watching. It was a pleasure. So far, Dinesh is losing, but a little disappointed in Andrew. I thought he was going to put a little more of a real orthodox argument forward instead of just transsexuals and gay people. But we can't be working the same hours. But I hope you all have a wonderful night. Hello. A lot of people are coming in right when I'm leaving. But have you ever read Mein Kampf, bro? I implore you. Read the rest of that book, Nico. And ask yourself after, don't do the whole thing. It's gonna kill you. It will literally kill you, okay? I promise you. 10 pages in, man, you will understand what I'm talking about. He is so bad at writing. He fucking sucks, okay? It's one of the most difficult books I think I've ever read, next to Critique of Pure Reason, and not in the good way. Critique of Pure Reason is good because it's good. But yeah, instead of copy pasting single parts, go read the first 10 pages, man. It's pretty bad, man. It's pretty bad. He's also should have let him paint. He also, to me, seems like a very weak man, but projects that whole idea of dominance, you know? I think that's a pretty bad aspect. He's kind of pathetic. He's just thinks that he has the God-given right to dominate the weak, right? And he's a pretty weak man himself, so that didn't really go that far. If I read that. But anyways, I have to get going. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a wonderful night. I stream all the time. Politics. And yeah. Peace out, A-Town. Usher.